Hello, everybody. Welcome to our table read of the Steven Spielberg 1993 classic Jurassic Park. I'm going to do a rundown of the cast that we got here. As Alan Grant, we got Erik as Ellie Sattler, and as our provider for dinosaur sound effects, we got Jessica. We got as Ian Malcolm and Mr. DNA, that will be moi. As John Hammond, we got Logan. As Tim Murphy, we got Colby. And as Muldoon, we got Travis. Dennis Nedry, we got Kyle. Nice shirt, Kyle, by the way. Perfect. As Gennaro, the lawyer, we got Jack. As Ray Arnold, hold on to your butts. It's George. As Lex, we got Anne. And our narrator is Cate. All right, so let's go to Isla Nubla. Let's do this thing. All right, Cate, whenever you're ready, start us off.
All right, Jurassic Park, screenplay by David Koepp, based upon the novel by Michael Crichton, on adaptation by Michael Crichton and Malia Scotch Marmo, December 11th, 1992. Exterior, jungle night. An eyeball, big, yellowish, distinctly inhuman, stares raptly between wooden slats, part of a large crate. The eye darts from side to side, alert as hell. A legend tries to place us. Isla Nublar, 120 miles west of Costa Rica. But to us, it's still the middle of nowhere. It's quiet for a second. A roar rises up from the jungle, deafening. The trees shake as something very, very large plows ahead through them, right at us. Every head gathered in this little clearing snaps, turning in the direction of the sound as it bursts through the trees. It's a bulldozer. It drops its scoop and pushes forward into the back end of the crate, shoving it across the jungle floor towards an impressive fenced structure that towers over an enclosed section of thick jungle. There's a guard tower at one end of this holding open that makes it look like San Quentin. The bulldozer pushes forward into the back end. The crate thuds to the floor. A door slides open in the pen, making a space as big as the end of the crate. Nobody moves for a second. A grim-faced guy who seems to be in charge, Robert Muldoon, although we don't know it yet.
All right, pushers move in. Loading team move in.
The movement has agitated whatever's inside the crate, and the whole thing shivers as growls and snaps come from inside. Everyone moves back.
All right, steady. Get back in there now. Push. Get back in there. Don't let her know you're afraid.
The men go back to the crate and begin to push it into the slot. The crate thuds up against the opening. A green light on the side of the pen lights up, showing contact has been made. From inside the crate, we get glimpses of what's on the other side of those wooden slats. Jungle foliage, men with rifles, searching searchlights. The view is herky-jerky as the crate is put into position.
Well locked, loading team. Step away. Joffrey, raise the gate.
A worker climbs to the top of the crate. The searchlights are trained on the door. The riflemen throw the bolts on the rifle and crack their stun guns, sending arcs of current cracking through the air. The worker gets ready to grab the gate when all at once, a roar from inside the crate and the panel flies out of his hands, smacks into him, and knocks him clear off the crate. Now everything happens at once. The worker thuds to the jungle floor. The crate jerks away from the mouth of the holding pen flash, and the alarm buzzer sounds. And the claw slashes out from inside the crate. It sinks into the ankle of the worker, dragging him toward the dark mouth between the crate and the pen. The worker screams and paws at the dirt, leaving long claw marks as he is rapidly dragged toward the crate. Muldoon shouts his orders.
Tasers, get in there, goddammit.
They fire their guns. The wood of the crate splinters. Muldoon runs in and grabs the worker, trying to pull him free. The wild arc of currents from the stun gun flash and crack all around, but in a second, the worker is gone. Cut to exterior mountainside day. Mano de Dios Amber Mine, Dominican Republic. Donald Gennaro, 40, in a city man's idea of hiking clothes and a $100 haircut, approaches on a raft being pulled across a river by two men. On the hillside, Juan Rostagno, 30-ish, Costa Rican, a smart-looking guy in worker clothes, is waiting for him.
Tengo mil pesos que dicen que se sé. He puesto mil pesos que se sé.
Gennaro finally lands and Rostaño helps him off the raft.
Hola, Juanito.
Hola, bienvenido.
Rostaño leads Gennaro towards the mine. Dozens of shirtless workers claw and scrape at a rocky mountainside that is the site of an extensive mining operation. Their work is all done by hand, pick and shovel instead of dynamite and bulldozer.
What's this I hear at the airport? Hammond's not even here?
He sends his apologies.
You're telling me that we're facing a $20 million lawsuit from the family of that injured worker, and Hammond couldn't even be bothered to see me.
He had to leave early to be with his daughter. She's getting a divorce.
I'm sorry to hear that, but we'd be well advised to deal with this situation now. The insurance company...
Gennaro almost falls. Rostaño helps him.
The underwriters of the park feel the accident raises some very serious questions about the safety of the park, and they're making the investors very anxious. I had to promise I would conduct a thorough on-site inspection.
Hammond hates inspections. They slow everything down.
Juanito, if they pull the funding, that will really slow things down.
A worker hurries up to them and busts in the conversation breathless.
Jefe, encontramos otro mosquito. Él en el mismo sitio.
¿Seguro? Muéstrame!
The worker and Rostaño scramble back deeper into the mine. Rostaño calls back over his shoulder to Gennaro.
It seems like it's going to be a good day after all. They found another one. Come on.
Gennaro struggles to keep up. Exterior, cave, day. Rostaño and Gennaro move into the dark, dripping cave where at least a dozen other workers are gathered in a tight circle, staring at something intently. Rostaño fights his way to the center of the group. One of the workers hands him something and he examines it carefully. It's a chunk of amber, a shiny yellow rock about the size of a $50. Isn't that Gennaro?
Yes. If two experts sign up on the island, the insurance guys will back off. I already got Ian Malcolm, but they think he's too trendy. They want Alan Grant.
Grant? You'll never get him out of Montana.
Why not?
Because he's like me. He's a digger.
Rostaño turns and holds the amber up to the sunlight streaming through the mouth of the cave. With the light pouring through it, the amber is translucent, and we can see something inside this strange stone. A huge mosquito, long dead, entombed there.
Ay, qué lindo eres, vas a hacer a mucho gente feliz.
Cut to exterior, the dig day. An artist camel hairbrush carefully sweeps away sand and rock to slowly reveal the dark curve of a fossil. It's a claw. A dentist picks gently lifts from the place it has laid for millions of years. Pull up to reveal a group of diggers working on a large skeleton. All we see are the tops of their hats. The paleontologist working on the claw lays it in his hand.
4 complete skeletons. Such a small area, the same time horizon.
They died together?
Yeah, the taphonomy sure looks that way.
If they died together, they lived together. It suggests some kind of social order.
Dr. Alan Grant, mid-30s, a ragged-looking guy with his intense concentration you wouldn't want to get in the way of, carefully examines the claw. Dr. Ellie Sattler, working with him, leans in close and studies it too. She paints the exposed bone with the rubber cement. Ellie, in her late 20s, athletic-looking, there's an impatience about her, as if nothing in life happens quite fast enough for her. Her face is almost pressed up against his. She's sitting so close.
They hunted as a team. The dismembered Tyrannosaurus bone over there, that's lunch. But what killed our raptors in a lake bed in a bunch like this? We better come up with something that makes sense.
The drought? The lake was shrinking?
That's good, that's right. They died around a dried up puddle. Without fighting each other, this is looking good.
From the bottom of the hill, a voice shouts to them.
Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, we're ready to try again.
Grant signs and sits up, stretching out his back.
Oh, I hate computers.
He shoves the claw absent-mindedly into his pocket, and he and Ellie walk towards the source of the voice. As they walk, we get our first look at the Badlands. Exposed outcroppings of crumbling limestone stretch for miles in every direction, not a tree or bush in sight. In the dig itself, the ground is checkered with excavations everywhere. There's a base camp with 5 or 6 teepees, a flapping mess tent, a few cards, a flatbed truck with wrapped fossils loaded in it, and a mobile home. There are a dozen volunteers of all ages and work in various places around the dig. The volunteers are from all walks of life, dinosaur buffs. 3 or 4 of them have children with them, and the kids run around like a giant sandbox. Grant, Ellie, and a volunteer walk down the hill. Grant spots a kid kicking the dirt on one of the digs. He notices and frowns.
What's that kid doing? What are you doing there? Excuse me. Can you just back off? This is very fragile. Are you out of your mind? Get off that and go find your parents. Did you see what he just did?
The kid stomps away, pissed off.
That's all.
Why do they have to bring their kids?
You can hire your help, but there's 4 summers of work here with the money for 1. And you say it's a learning experience, sort of a vacation, and you get volunteers with kids.
He and Ellie arrive to where several volunteers are clustered around the computer terminal that's set up on the table in a small tent, its flaps lashed open.
Ready to give it a shot, Jerry?
A little girl moves a little closer to the machine.
Want to watch the computer?
Ellie quietly moves her out of Grant's way to a place she can see.
Thumper ready?
Ready.
Fire.
The volunteer throws a switch on the machine that looks a bit like a floor buffer. The whole thing hops up into the air and it drives a soft lead pellet to the earth with a tremendous force. There's a dull thud and the earth seems to vibrate, and all eyes turn to the computer screen.
How long does this usually take?
Should be an immediate return. You shoot the radar down into the ground. The bone bounces back.
The screen suddenly comes alive, yellow contour lines tracing across 3 waves, detailing a dinosaur skeleton.
This new program's incredible. A few more years of development, and you won't even have to dig anymore.
Grant looks at him and his expression is positively wounded.
Well, where's the fun in that?
It looks a little distorted, but I don't think that's the computer.
Post-mortem contraction of the posterior neck alignments. Velociraptor?
Yes, good shape too. 5, 6 feet high. I'm guessing 9 feet long. Look at the...
He points to a part of the skeleton, but when his finger touches the screen, the computer beeps at him and the image changes. He pulls his hand back as if it shocked him.
What'd you do?
He touched it. Dr. Grant is not machine compatible.
Got it in for me.
The volunteer laughs as he touches a different part of the screen, which brings the original image back. Grant continues, but doesn't get as close.
Look at the half-moon-shaped bone in the wrist. No wonder these guys want to fly.
The group laughs. Grant is surprised.
Now seriously, show of hands. How many of you read my book?
Everyone stops laughing and looks away. Ellie raises her hand supportively. So does the volunteer. Grant sighs.
Great. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than reptiles. Look at the pelvic bone. It's turned backwards, just like a bird. The vertebrae, full of hollows and air sacs, just like a bird. Even the word raptor means bird of prey.
The kid steps forward and looks at the computer skeleton critically.
That doesn't look very scary. It's more like a 6-foot turkey.
Everyone sort of draws in their breath and steps aside, revealing the kid standing alone. Grant turns to the kid, lowers his sunglasses, and stares at him like he just came from another planet. Grant strolls over, puts his arm around the kid, and in a friendly way.
Try to imagine yourself in the Jurassic period.
Ellie rolls her eyes.
Here we go.
You've got your first look at the 6-foot turkey as you move into the clearing. But Raptor, he knew you were there a long time ago. He moves like a bird, lightly, bobbing his head, and you keep still because you think maybe his visual acuity's based on movement, like a T-Rex, and he'll lose you if you don't move. But no, not Velociraptor. You stare at him, and he just stares back. That's when the attack comes. Not from front, no, from the side, from the other 2 raptors you didn't even know were there.
Grant walks around the kid.
Velociraptor's a pack hunter, you see. He uses coordinated attack patterns. And he's out in force today. And he slashes at you with this.
He takes the claw from his pocket and holds it at the front of the raptor's 3-toed foot.
6-inch retractable claw, like a razor, on the middle toe. They don't bother to bite the jugular, like a lion. They just slash here.
He points to the kid's chest and thigh.
Maybe across the belly, spilling your intestines. Point is, you're alive when they start to eat you. Whole thing took about 4 seconds.
The kid is on the verge of tears.
So, try to show a little respect.
And with that, he walks back across the camp, returning to his skeleton. Ellie hurries to catch up with him.
You know, if you really wanted to scare the kid, you could have just pulled a gun on him.
Yeah, I know. You know, kids. You wouldn't have one of those?
Well, not one of those. Well, yeah, a possibility at one point could be a good thing. What's so wrong with kids?
Oh, Ellie, look. They're noisy, they're messy, they're sticky, they're expensive.
Cheap, cheap, cheap.
They smell.
They do not smell. They don't smell.
They do smell. Some of them smell. Babies smell.
All right, the one on the airplane had an accident, but usually babies don't smell.
Mm-hmm. They know very little about the Jurassic period than they know about the Cretaceous.
The what?
Cretaceous.
Anything else, you old fossil?
Yeah, plenty. Some of them can't walk.
It frustrates me so much that I love you that I need to strangle you right now.
Ellie playfully takes Grant's hat off and gives him a tight hug. They kiss. A strange wind seems to be whipping up. Grant and Ellie look around, confused. The wind is getting stronger, blowing dirt and sand everywhere, filling in everything they've dug out, blowing the protective canvases off. Now there's a more familiar roar, and they look up and see a huge helicopter descending on the camp.
Get some canvases and cover anything that's exposed.
Grant's already on it, trying desperately to protect the skeleton he's excavating. He looks up at the helicopter and shouts, shaking his fist. Cut to exterior base camp day. Down on the base camp, the helicopter has landed. The pilot's already out waiting as Grant comes down from the mountaintop like Moses steaming. Grant gestures wildly at him to turn the chopper off. The pilot points timidly at the mobile home across the camp. Grant runs to the trailer. Exterior trailer day. The door to the trailer slaps open. Grant storms in.
What the hell do you think you're doing in here?
The trailer serves as the dig's office. There are several long wooden tables set up every inch, covered with bone specimens that are neatly laid out, tagged, and labeled. Further along, the ceramic dishes and crocks, soaking their bones in acid and vinegar. There's old, dusty furniture at one end of the trailer and a refrigerator. A man roots around in the refrigerator, his back to us, grumbling about the contents, which are mostly beer. His hand falls across the bottle of an expensive champagne in the back.
Aha!
He pulls it out, the cork pops, the man turns around, John Hammond, 70-ish, is sprightly as hell with bright, shining eyes that say, "Follow me." Grant stares incredulously at the man holding his champagne bottle without an invitation.
Hey, we were saving that!
Today, I guarantee it.
And who in God's name do you think you are?
John Hammond, and I'm delighted to finally meet you in person, Dr. Grant.
Grant is struck silent. He shakes his head, staring dumbly.
Mr. Hammond?
Hammond looks around the trailer approvingly at the enormous amount of work the bones represent.
I can see my $50,000 a year has been well spent.
The door slaps open again as Ellie comes in, just as pissed off as Grant was.
Okay, who's the jerk?
This is our paleobotanist, Dr. Ellie.
Sattler.
Dr. Sattler? Ellie, this is Mr. Hammond. John.
Did I say jerk?
I'm sorry for the dramatic entrance, but I'm in a bit of a hurry. Do you mind if we have a wee bit of a drink now and then?
Hammond begins to walk into the kitchen, making himself at home. Ellie follows him, tries to help. Grant settles behind the table.
Oh, come on along then. Don't let it get warm. Come on in, both of you. Sit down.
As Hammond moves, they notice he walks with a slight limp and uses a cane. For balance or style, it's hard to say which.
I have samples all over the kitchen.
Come along. I know my way around the kitchen. Come along.
Ellie goes around towards Grant. She grabs a bottle of water. They look at each other, really aback by this guy's bravado, and sight down. Hammond dries the glasses.
Now then, I'll get right to the point. I like you. Both of you. I can tell instantly with people. It's a gift. Now, I own an island off the coast of Costa Rica. I lease it from the government and spent the last 5 years setting up my own kind of biological preserve down there. Really spectacular, no expense. And it makes one that I had in Kenya look like a petting zoo. No doubt, sooner or later, our attractions will drive the kids right out of their minds.
And what are those?
Small versions of adults, honey.
He gives her a dirty look.
And not just for kids, everyone. We're going to open next year, unless the lawyers kill me first. I don't care for lawyers. You?
I don't really know any.
Well, I'm afraid I do. There's a particular pebble in my shoe. He represents my investors. He says they insist on outside opinions.
What kind of opinions?
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but your kind. Let's face it, in your particular field, you are top minds. If I could get the two of you to sign off on the park, just give a wee testimonial, I could get back on schedule.
Why would they care what we think?
What kind of park is it?
Well, it's right up your alley. Look, why don't the pair of you come down for the weekend? Love to have an opinion from a paleobotanist as well. Look, I've got a jet standing by at Chateau.
No, I'm sorry. That wouldn't be possible. We just discovered a new skeleton, and
I could compensate you by fully funding your dig.
this would be an awfully unusual time.
For a further 3 years.
Grant oofs as Ellie elbows him hard in the ribs.
Where's the plane?
Cut to exterior cafe day. Dennis Nedry is in his late 30s, a big guy with a constant smile that could either be laughing with you or at you. You can never tell. He sits at a table in front of a Central American cafe eating breakfast. Another legend, San Jose, Costa Rica. Nedry looks up and sees a man get out of his taxi, Louis Dodgson, 50-ish, wearing a large straw hat, looking almost too much like an American tourist. He clutches the attaché case close to him and scans the cafe furtively. Nedry laughs, shakes his head, and waves to him.
Dodgson.
Dodgson hurries over to the table.
You shouldn't use my name.
Dodgson. We got Dodgson here. See, nobody cares. Nice hat. What are you trying to look like? A secret agent?
Dodgson ignores that, sets his attaché case down next to the table, and slides it towards Nedry.
$750
Nedry smiles and pulls the attaché closer to him.
on delivery. 50,000 more for every viable embryo. That's 1.5 million if you get all 15 species off the island.
Oh, I'll get them all.
Remember, viable embryos. They're no use to us if they don't survive.
How am I supposed to transport them?
Dodgson pulls an ordinary can of shaving cream from a shoulder bag he carries and sets it on the table.
Bottom screws open. It's cooled and compartmentalized inside. They can even check it if they want. Press the top.
Nedry presses the top of the can and real shaving cream comes out. He grins, impressed. While Dodgson talks, Nedry looks around for somewhere to wipe the shaving cream and ends up dumping it on someone's Jell-O in a dessert tray next to him.
There's enough coolant gas for 36 hours.
Nedry checks the can.
What, no menthol?
Mr. Nedry, the embryos have to be back here in San Jose by then.
That's up to your guy on the boat. 7 o'clock tomorrow night at the East Dock. Make sure he got it right.
I was wondering, how are you planning to beat the security?
I got an 18-minute window. 18 minutes, and your company catches up on 10 years of research.
A waiter arrives and puts the check down on the table between them. Nedry looks down at it pointedly, then up at Dodgson.
Don't cheap on me now, Dodgson.
Dodgson rolls his eyes and picks up the check.
That was Hammond's mistake.
Exterior, open sea day, helicopter, engine construction emblazoned on the side, skims low over the shimmering Pacific. Exterior helicopter day, Grant, Ellie, Gennaro, and Malcolm are huddled in the back of the chopper. Hammond is on the front with the pilot. There are two other passengers as well. Donald Gennaro, the lawyer from the Amber Mine, now dressed in safari clothes, everything straight from Banana Republic. The other, Dr. Ian Malcolm, 40-ish, dresses all in black with a snakeskin boots and sunglasses. Malcolm, who finds it hard to take his eyes off Ellie, leans over and shouts over the engine line.
Oh, yeah. Should we dig up dinosaurs?
Try to.
Malcolm laughs, finding this very amusing, which confuses Grant. Hammond turns around annoyed.
You'll have to get used to to Dr. Malcolm. He suffers from a deplorable excess of personality, especially for a mathematician.
Chaotician, actually. Chaotician.
Hammond snorts, not even bothering to cover his contempt for Malcolm.
John doesn't subscribe to chaos, particularly what it has to say about his little science project.
God swallop. Ian, you've never come close to explaining these concerns of yours about this island.
I certainly have, very clearly, because of the behavior of the system and the face space.
Hammond waves him off.
A load, if I may say so. If fashionable number crunching, that's all it is.
John.
Don't do that.
Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, you heard of chaos theory?
No.
No? Not only your equations? Strange attractions? Dr. Sattler, I refuse to believe that you're not familiar with the concept of attraction.
Grant just rolls his eyes as Malcolm gives her an oily grin, but Ellie smiles, enjoying Grant's jealousy. Hammond turns to Gennaro and gives him a dirty look.
I bring scientists, you bring a rock star.
Hammond looks out the windshield and claps his hands excitedly.
There it is.
Up ahead, the others see it, Isla Nublar. It's a smallish island, completely ringed by thick clouds that give it a lush, mysterious feel. The pilot pulls up over a spot in the clouds and starts to descend fast.
Bad wind shears. We have to drop pretty fast. Hold on, this can be a bit thrilling.
The helicopter drops like a stone. Outside the windows, they can see the cliff walls racing by, uncomfortably close. They bounce like hell, hitting wind and up and down drafts. Only Hammond still feels chatty.
We're planning an airstrip on pilings extending out to the ocean, 12,000 feet like LaGuardia, only a lot safer. What do you think?
They don't answer. They just hold on. And as they near the ground, a luminous white cloud cross appears below them, the landing pad shining through the plexiglass bubble in the floor of the chopper. The cross grows rapidly larger as the chopper plummets, but a sudden updraft catches them and they bounce skyward for a moment, then drop again, even faster if possible, before landing with a hard bump. Exterior helicopter landing pad, chopper plummets and finally lands. One of the workers opens the doors and the group gets out. Hammond looks out proudly. Exterior hilltop. Two large open-top jeeps roar down the hilltop away from the landing crosses. The helicopter engines wind back to life and the rotors start to spin again. Ellie, Grant, and Malcolm hold on tight in the front jeep. Hammond and Gennaro are in the rear jeep. Both cars have drivers. They pass through the enormous gates and the 30-foot high fence, which is closed behind them by two park attendants. There are large electrical insulators on the fences, warning lights that strobe importantly in clear signs. Electrified fence, 10,000 volts. In the rear jeep, Gennaro regards the fences critically.
The full 50 miles of perimeter fence are in place.
And the concrete moats, and the motion sensor tracking systems. Donald, dear boy, do try, relax, and enjoy yourself.
Let's get something straight, John. This is not a weekend excursion. This is a serious investigation to the stability of the island. Your investors, who I represent, are deeply concerned. 48 hours from now, if they aren't convinced, I'm not convinced. And I can shut you down, John.
48 hours from now, and I'll be accepting your apologies. Now get out of the way so I can see them.
He shoves Gennaro aside to get a clear view of Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm.
I wouldn't miss this for the world.
The jeeps wind their way along the mountain road. In the lead jeep, Ellie stares off to the right, fascinated by the thick tropical plant life around them. She tilts her head as if something's wrong with this picture. She reaches out and grabs a hold of a leafy branch as they drive by, tearing it from the tree. In the rear jeep, Hammond watches Grant signals to his driver.
Just stop here, slow.
He slows down, then stops. So does the front jeep. In the front jeep, Ellie stares at the leaf amazed, running her hand lightly over it.
Alan.
But Grant's not paying attention. He's staring too, out the other side of the jeep. Grant notices that several of the tree trunks are leafless, just as thick as the other trees, but gray and bare.
This shouldn't be here.
Grant twists in his seat as the jeep stops and looks at one of the gray tree trunks. Riveted, he slowly stands up in his seat as if to get closer. He moves to the top of the seat practically on his tiptoes. He raises his head looking up at the length of the trunk. He looks higher and higher and higher. There is no tree trunk. That's a leg. Grant's jaw drops. His head falls all the way back and he looks even higher, above the tree line.
The species of vermiform has been extinct since the Cretaceous period. This thing...
Grant, never tearing his eyes from the brachiosaur, reaches over and grabs Ellie's head, turning it to face the animal. She sees it and drops the leaf.
Oh my God.
Grant lets out a long, sharp ha, a combination of laugh and shout of joy. He gets out of the jeep and Ellie follows. Grant points to the thing and manages to put together his first words since its appearance.
That's a dinosaur.
A dinosaur chewing the branches. Technically, it's a brachiosaur of the sauropod family, but we've always called it Brontosaurus. It crunches the branch in its mouth, which is some 35 feet up off the ground. At the end of its long, arching neck, it stares down at people in the car with a pleasant, stupid gaze. Ellie looks at the sauropods in wonder. They've pretty light on their feet, far cry from sluggish, lumbering brutes we would have expected. Hammond gets out of his jeep and comes along to join them. He looks like a proud parent showing off his kid. Ian looks at Hammond amazed with the expression that is a mixture of admiration and reproachment.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did it.
Grant and Ellie continue walking, following the dinosaur.
The movement.
The agility. You're right.
In their amazement, Grant and Ellie talk right over each other.
Ellie, we can tear up the rule book on cold-bloodedness. It doesn't apply. They're totally wrong. This is a warm-blooded creature. They're totally wrong.
You were wrong. Case closed. This thing doesn't live in a swamp to support its body weight, for God's sake.
Several of the top branches are suddenly ripped away. Another sauropod reaching for a branch high above their head stands effortlessly on his hind legs.
That thing's got a, 27-foot neck?
The brachiosaur, 30.
Grant and Ellie continue to walk.
Oh my God. And you're going to sit there and try to tell me it can push blood up a 30-foot neck without a 4-chambered heart and got around like that? Like that! This is like a knockout punch for warm-bloodedness.
We clocked the T-Rex at 32 miles an hour.
You've got a T-Rex? He's got a T-Rex? A T-Rex? He said he's...
Say again.
We have a T-Rex.
Grant feels faint. He sits down on the ground.
Honey, put your head between your legs. Breathe, breathe.
Hammond walks in front of them and looks out.
Dr. Grant, my dear Dr. Sattler, welcome to Jurassic Park.
They turn and look at the view again. It's beautiful vista reminiscent of an African plain. A whole herd of dinosaurs crosses the plain, maybe 100 that we see in a quick glance alone.
Moving in herds. They do move in herds.
You were right.
How did you do it? How did you do this?
I'll show you.
Finally, we notice Gennaro, who was sort of faded into the background while the others reacted. He's just staring, a look of absolute rapture on his face. He speaks in a voice that is hushed and reverent.
We're going to make a fortune with this place.
Exterior main compound day. The main of Jurassic Park is a large area with 3 main structures connected by walkways and surrounded by 2 impressive fences, the outer fence almost 20 feet high. Outside the fences, the jungle has been encouraged to grow naturally. The largest building is the visitor center, several stories tall, its walls still skeletal, unfinished. There's a huge glass rotunda on the center. Second building looks like it's a private residence, a compound unto itself with smoked windows and its own perimeter fence. The third structure isn't really a building at all, but the impressive cage we saw earlier, overgrown inside with thick jungle foliage. The jeep pull in front of the visitor center. Hammond leads Grant, Ellie, Gennaro, and Malcolm up the stairs, talking as he goes. 2 ladies open the door to the visitor center. Interior visitor center. The lobby of the still finished visitor center is a high ceiling place. Has to be housed in its central feature, a large skeleton of a tyrannosaur that is attacking bellowing sauropod. Workmen in the basket of the condor crane are still assembling skeletons. A staircase climbs the far wall to another wing.
You see, the most advanced amusement park in the world, combining all the latest technologies. And I'm not talking rides, everyone has rides. We made a living biological attraction, so astonishing, they'll capture the imaginations of the entire planet.
Grant stares up at the dinosaur skeletons and just shakes his head. Ellie catches his reaction.
So what are you thinking?
We're out of a job.
Ian Malcolm pops in between them.
Non-committing extinct.
Ellie and Malcolm move ahead. Cut to interior showroom day.
Why don't you all sit down?
Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm take their seats in the front row of the 50-seat auditorium. Gennaro sits behind them. Hammond walks over to the giant screen in front of them. Behind him is a huge screen of himself as it beams down from the giant television screen.
Hello, John. Oh, say hello. Oh, I've got lines.
He scans them, looking for his place. The screen Hammond continues without him.
Fine, I guess. And how did I get here? Here, let me show you. First, I'll need a drop of blood. Your blood.
The screen Hammond extends his finger, and the stage Hammond reaches out and mimes, pocketing it with a needle.
John, that hurt. Relax, John. That's all part of the miracle of cloning.
While the 2 Hammonds rattle on, the screen image splits into 2 Hammonds, then 4, then 8, and so on, like a shampoo commercial. Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm huddle together excitedly in the audience.
Cloning from what? Low extraction has never recreated an intact DNA strand.
Not without massive sequence gaps.
Paleo-DNA? From what source? Where do you get 100-million-year-old dinosaur blood?
In the film, the screen Hammond is joined by another figure, this one animated. Mr. DNA is a cartoon character, a happy-go-lucky double helix strand of recumbent DNA. Mr. DNA jumps down on the screen Hammond's head and slides down his nose.
Oh, well, Mr. DNA, Where'd you come from?
Well, from your blood. Just one drop of your blood contains billions of strands of DNA, the building blocks of life.
In the film, Mr. DNA has taken over the show and is speaking to the audience from the screen.
A DNA strand like me is a blueprint for building a living thing. And sometimes animals that went extinct millions of years ago, like dinosaurs, left their blueprints behind us for us to find. We just had to know where to look.
The screen image changes from an animated to a nature photography look. It's an extremely close-up mosquito. Its fangs suck the deep into some animal's flesh. Its body pulsing and engorging with blood it's drinking.
100 million years ago, there were mosquitoes just like today. And just like today, they found the blood of animals, even dinosaurs.
The camera races back to show the mosquito. It's perched on top of a giant animated brachiosaur. The image changes to another close-up, this one of a tree branch, its bark glistening with golden sap. Mr. DNA leaps on the sap.
Sometimes after biting a dinosaur, the mosquito would lie on a branch on a tree and get stuck in the sap.
The engorged mosquito lands on the tree sap and gets stuck. So is Mr. DNA. He tugs his legs, but they stay stuck.
Whoa!
Now the tree sap flows over them, covering up Mr. DNA and the mosquito completely. Mr. DNA shouts from inside the tree sap.
After a long time, this tree sap would get hard and become fossilized, just like a dinosaur bone, preserving the mosquito inside.
A science laboratory. The place buzzes with activity. Everywhere there are piles of amber, tagged and labeled with scientists in white coats examining it under microscopes. One scientist moves a complicated drill apparatus next to the chuck of amber with the fossilized mosquito inside and bores into the side of it. Mr. DNA escapes through the drill hole as the scientist moves the amber onto the microscope and peers through the eyepiece.
Thus, this fossilized tree sap, which we call amber, waited millions of years with the mosquito inside until Jurassic Park scientists came along.
Through the microscope, we see a greatly enlarged image of the mosquito through the lens.
Using sophisticated techniques, they extract and preserve blood from the mosquito and...
A long needle is inserted through the amber into the thorax of the mosquito and makes an extraction.
Bingo! Dino DNA.
Mr. DNA jumps down in front of the DNA data as it races by at headache speed. He holds his head, dizzied by it.
A full DNA strand contains 3 billion genetic codes. If we look at screens like these ones a second for 8 hours a day, it takes 2 years to look at the entire strand. It's that long. And since it's so old, it's full of holes. That's where our geneticists take over.
Interior Genetics Lab. Scientists toil in the lab with 2 huge white towers at either side.
Thinking machine supercomputers and gene sequences break down the strand in minutes.
One scientist in the back has his arms encased in 2 long rubber tubes. He's strapped to a bizarre apparatus, staring into the complex headpiece and moving his arms gently, like Tai Chi movements.
In virtual reality displays, our geneticists dig the gaps in the DNA sequence. Since most animal DNA is 90% identical, we use the complete DNA of a frog.
On the VR display, we see an actual DNA strand, except it has a big hole in the center where the vital information is missing. Mr. DNA bounds into the frame carrying a bunch of letters in one hand. He puts it in the gap and turns back against it, grunting as he shoves it into place.
To fill in the holes and complete the code. Whew.
He brushes his hands off, satisfied.
Now we can make a baby dinosaur.
In the audience, the scientists look at each other, not sure.
All this and some dramatic music and all that march or something. It's not written yet, but the tour will move on.
Throws a switch and safety bars appear out of nowhere, drop over their seats, clicking into place.
For your own safety.
The row of seats moves out of the auditorium. Interior hallway. The row of seats moves slowly past the row in double-pane glass. Window beneath a large sign that reads, Genetics Fertilization Hatchery. Inside, technicians work at microscopes. In the back is a section entirely lit by blue ultraviolet light. Mr. DNA voice continues over a speaker in each seat.
Our fertilization department is where the dinosaur DNA takes the place of the DNA in unfertilized emu or ostrich eggs. And then it's on to the nursery, where we welcome the dinosaurs back into the world.
Gennaro has a wondrous grin plastered on his face, just loving everything now.
This is overwhelming, John. Are these characters animatronics?
Oh no, we don't have any animatronics here. These are the real miracle workers of Jurassic Park.
Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm are frustrated, leaning forward, straining against the safety bars for a better look, but the cars keep going.
Wait a minute. How do you interrupt the cellular mitosis?
Do we see the unfertilized eggs?
But the cars are already moving into another set of windows, which give a glimpse into what looks like a control room.
Shortly.
Our control room contains some of the most sophisticated automation ever attempted in.
Grant strains to look back into the labs, but the cars move past again, no intention of slowing down.
Can't you stop these things?
Sorry, it's kind of a ride.
Let's get out of here.
The two of them team up on the safety bars. Grant shoves his all the way back with one foot, and Malcolm does the same. They stand up and head for the door of the hatchery.
You can't do that.
Too late. Ellie slips out from under her safety bar too and stomps right across Gennaro's seat.
Can they do that?
They reach the door to the hatchery. Grant tries to shove it open, but it just thuds. He rattles the handle, but the door won't budge as it's on a security key card system. Hammond steps up and takes his glasses off.
Relax, Donald, relax. They're scientists. They ought to be curious. It's a retinal scanner.
He pushes various code numbers. The door opens. He steps aside, and the group eagerly goes to the stairs. In the hallway, Grant runs up the stairs. Malcolm and Ellie eagerly try to get a look at the lab. Hammond and Gennaro come up and join Grant at the door.
John, what I'm just saying...
Relax, Donald, relax. They're scientists. They ought to be curious.
Hammond reaches the door. Grant tries to pry it open.
Dr. Grant, just a moment, dear boy. Curiosity is one of the permanent and certain characteristics of a vigorous intellect. Right, come on.
Hatchery. The hatchery is a vast open room, bathed in infrared light. Long tables run the length of the place, all covered with eggs, their pale outlines obscured by hissing low mist that's all through the room.
Come on in.
Hammond takes off his hat and hands it to one of the technicians. Henry Wu, late 20s, Asian American, wearing a white lab coat that at a nearby table taking notes.
Good day, Henry.
Oh, good day, sir.
Grant goes to a round open with various eggs under a strong light. One of the eggs makes strong movements. A robotic arm steadies the shell.
My God, look!
Hammond, Ellie, and Malcolm join him, as does Henry Wu.
Perfect timing. I'd hoped they'd hatch before I had to go to the boat.
Henry, why didn't you tell me? You know I insist on being here when they're born.
Hammond puts on a pair of plastic gloves. The egg begins to crack. The robotic arm moves away. A baby dinosaur tries to get out, just its head sticking out of the shell. Hammond reaches down and carefully breaks away egg fragments, helping the baby dinosaur out of the shell.
Come on, then out you come. They imprint on the first living creature they come in contact with. It helps them to trust me. I've been present for the birth of every animal on this island. Oh, just look at that.
Certainly not the ones that have bred in the wild.
Actually, they can't breed in the wild. Population control is one of our security precautions here. There is no unauthorized breeding in Jurassic Park.
Grant and Ellie exchange a look. She manages not to smile.
How do you know they can't breed?
Because all the animals in Jurassic Park are females. We engineered them that way.
Hammond keeps his attention trained on the new dinosaur.
There you are. Push, out you come. Yes.
God.
Could I have a tissue, please?
Right away. Coming right up.
The animal is now free. Hammond sets it carefully next to its shell. Grant picks it up and holds it in the palm of his hand under the incubator's heat light.
Blood temperature feels like high 80s.
Woo.
91.
Grant picks up the large broken half shell, but the robotic arm snatches it back out of his hand and puts it down.
Homeothermic? It holds that temperature? Incredible.
Malcolm is looking at Hammond, skeptical.
But again, how do you know they're all female? Does someone go to the park and look at the dinosaur skirts?
We control their chromosomes. It's not that difficult. All vertebrate embryos are inherently female anyway. It takes an extra hormone at the right developmental stage to create a male, and we simply deny them that.
Your silence intrigues me.
John, the kind of control you're attempting is not possible. There's one thing history of evolution has taught us, that life will not be contained. Life breaks free, it expands to new territories, it crashes through the barriers, painfully, maybe even dangerously, but, well, There it is.
Ellie listens to him, impressed.
Waterhead, waterhead.
Grant, ignoring the others, picks up the baby dinosaur and holds it in the palm of his hand, under the incubator's heat light. He spreads the tiny animal out on the back of his hand and delicately runs his finger over its tail, counting the vertebrae. A look of puzzled recognition crosses his face.
You're implying that a group composed entirely of females will breed?
I simply saying that life finds a way.
You can't control anything. I agree with that. I like that.
She walks over to Malcolm. He smiles at her, too warmly.
You can talk. I don't know how to say it. You're just articulate. You say everything I think, that I feel. It's exciting.
That's right. We'll break through.
I get
I know. It's very exciting.
it's scary.
And scary.
When people try to control things that's out of their power.
It's anti-nature.
Anti-nature.
Grant doesn't notice as he's still obsessed with the infant dinosaur, measuring and weighing it on a nearby lab bench. He stops, a strange look on his face. He knows what this animal is, but it can't be.
What species is this?
It's a velociraptor.
Grant and Ellie turn slowly and look at each other, then look at Hammond, astonished.
Bred raptors?
Exterior raptor pen. Grant charges across the compound, a fire in his eyes. Ahead of Ellie, Malcolm, and Gennaro, Hammond struggles to keep up.
Dr. Grant, we plan to show you the raptors after lunch.
Grant has stopped abruptly next to the velociraptor pen, which we recognize as the heavily fortified cage we saw earlier, which the San Quentin towers at one end. Grant stands right up against the fence, eyes wide, dying for a glimpse. Hammond catches up, slightly out of breath.
Oh, Dr. Grant, as I was saying, we've laid out lunch for you before we head out into the park. Alejandro, our gourmet chef.
What are they doing?
As they watch, a giant crane lowers something large down into the middle of the jungle foliage inside the pen, something very large. It's a steer. The poor thing looks disconcerted as hell, helpless in its harness, flailing its legs in the air.
Feeding them. Now, Alejandro is preparing a delightful meal for us, a Chilean sea bass, I believe, shall we?
Grant goes up to the viewing deck. The others follow, staring at the steer. It disappears into the shroud of foliage. The line from the crane hangs for a moment. The jungle seems to grow very quiet. They all stare at the motionless crane line. It jerks suddenly like a fishing pole finally getting a nibble. There's a pause, then a frenzy. The line jerks every which way. The jungle plants sway and snap from some frantic activity within. There's a cacophony of growling and snapping and wet crunches that mean the steer is literally being torn to pieces, and it almost makes it worse that we can't see any of what's going on. And then it's quiet again. The line jerks a few times and stops. Slowly, the sound of the jungle starts up again.
Fascinating animals. Fascinating.
Oh my god.
Given time, they'll outdraw the T-Rex. Guarantee it.
I want to see them. Can we get closer?
Ellie puts a hand on his arm, like calming an overexcited child.
Ellen, these aren't bones anymore.
We're still perfecting a viewing system. The raptors seem to be a bit resistant to integration into a park setting.
A voice comes from behind them.
They should all be destroyed.
They turn and look at the man who spoke, Robert Muldoon. The grim-faced man who was present at the accident in the beginning is 40-ish, British. He joins them and takes his hat off. When Muldoon talks, you listen.
Robert Muldoon, my game warden from Kenya. Bit of an alarmist, I'm afraid, but he's dealt with the raptors more than anyone.
Alan Grant, tell me, what kind of metabolism do they have? What's their growth rate?
They're lethal, and 8 months, and I do mean lethal. I have hunted most things that can hunt you, but the way these things move.
Fast for biped?
Cheetah speed, 50, 60 miles per hour if they get out in the open, and they're astonishing jumpers.
Yes, which is why we take extreme precautions. The viewing area below us will have an 8-inch tempered glass set in reinforced steel frames to...
Do they show intelligence? Like with the brain cavity like theirs, we assumed.
They show extreme intelligence, even problem solving, especially the big one. We breed 8 originally, but when she came in, she took over the pride and killed all but 2 of the others. Then that one. When she looks at it, you can see she's thinking or working things out. She's the reason we have to feed them like this. She's had them all attacking the fences when the feeders came.
The fences are electrified, right?
That's right, but they never attacked the same place twice. They were testing the fences for weaknesses systematically. They remember.
Behind them, the crane whirs back to life, raising the cable back up to the raptor pen. The guests turn and stare as the end portion of the cable becomes visible. The steer has been dragged completely away, leaving only the tattered, bloody harness. Hammond claps his hands together excitedly.
Who's hungry? After you, my dear.
Interior Visitor Center presentation room. Hammond, Grant, Ellie, Malcolm, and Gennaro eat lunch at a long table in the Visitor Center restaurant. There's a large buffet table and 2 waiters to serve them. The room is darkened and Hammond is showing slides of various scenes all around them. Hammond's own recorded voice describes current and future features of the park while the slides flash artist renderings of all of them. The real Hammond turns and speaks over the narration.
Now, none of these attractions have been finished yet. The park will open with the basic tour you're about to take, and then other rides will come online after 6 or 12 months. Absolutely spectacular design, spared no expense.
More slides click past a series of graphs dealing with profits, attendance, and other fiscal projections. Gennaro, who has become increasingly friendly with Hammond, even giddy, grins from ear to ear.
And we can charge anything we want, $2,000 a day, $10,000 a day. People will pay it. And then there's the merchandising.
Donald, this park was not built to cater only to the super rich. Everyone in the world's got a right to enjoy these animals.
Sure, they will. We'll have a coupon day or something.
Grant looks down at the plate he's eating from. It's in the shape of the island itself. He looks at his drinking cup. It's got a T-Rex on it and a splashy Jurassic Park logo. There's a stack of folded music park style maps on the table in front of him. He picks one up. Boldly across the top it says, "Fly United to Jurassic Park."
Combined revenue streams for all 3 parks should reach $8 to $9 billion a year. That's conservative, of course. There's no reason to speculate wildly.
I've never been a rich man. I hear it's nice. Is it nice?
Ian Malcolm, who was watching the screens without outright contempt, snorts as if he's finally had enough.
Lack of humility before nature that's been displayed here staggers me.
They all turn to look at him.
Thank you, Dr. Malcolm, but I think things are a little different than you and I feared.
Yes, I know. They're a lot worse.
Now, wait a second. We haven't even seen the park yet. Let's just hold out concerns until we were invited to this island to evaluate the safety conditions of the park, physical containment, the theories that all simple systems have complex behavior, that animals in a zoo environment will eventually begin to behave in an unpredictable fashion, have nothing to do with that evaluation. This is not something existential furlough. This is an on-site inspection. You are a doctor, do your job. You are invalidating your own assessment. I'm sorry, John.
It's all right, Donald, it's all right. Just let him talk. I want to hear all viewpoints. I truly do.
Don't you see the danger, John, inherent in what you're doing here? Genetic power is the most awesome force I've ever seen on this planet, but you would like a kid who found his dad's gun. It's hard to start. Excuse me. I'll tell you. The problem with scientific power, you use it as you didn't require any discipline to attain it. You read what others had done and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge yourself, so you don't take responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could. And before you knew what you had, patented it, packaged it, slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling. You're selling.
You don't give us our due credit. Our scientists have done things no one could have ever done before.
The scientists were so preoccupied with whatever out they could that they didn't stop thinking they should. Science can create pesticides, but it can't tell us not to use them. Science can make a nuclear reactor, but it can't tell us not to build it.
But this is nature. Why not give an extinct species a second chance? I mean, condors. Condors are on the verge of extinction. If I'd created a flock of condors on the island, you wouldn't be saying anything about this, or you wouldn't have anything to say at all.
Well, hold on. This is not no species that was obliterated by the deforestation or the building of a dam. The dinosaurs had their shot. Nature selected them for extinction.
I don't understand this Luddite attitude, especially from a scientist. How can we stand in the light of the discovery and not act?
Well, what's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrative act that scars what explorers. What do you call discovering? I call rape of the natural one.
Please. Let's hear something from the others. Dr. Grand, I'm sorry, Dr. Sattler?
The question is, how much can you know about an extinct ecosystem, and therefore, how could you assume you can control it? You have plants right here in this building, for example, that are poisonous. You pick them because they look pretty, but these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're living in and will defend themselves, violently if necessary.
Exasperated, Hammond turns to Grant, who looks shell-shocked.
Dr. Grant, if there's one person here who can appreciate all of what I'm trying to do.
Grant speaks quietly, really thrown by all of this.
I feel elated and frightened, and the world has just changed so radically. We're all running to catch up. I don't want to jump to any conclusions, but look.
He leans forward, a look of true concern on his face.
Dinosaurs and man, two species separated by 65 million years of evolution, have just been suddenly thrown back into the mix together. How can we have the faintest idea of what to expect?
I don't believe it. I expected you to come down here and defend me from these characters, and the only one I've got on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
Thank you.
One of the waiters whispers to Hammond.
Ah, they're here.
Ooh.
Interior Visitor Center lobby. Hammond, Grant, Ellie, Malcolm, Gennaro walk out to the restaurant and into the lobby of the Visitor Center. They head down the stairs and past the skeletons of the dinosaurs again.
You four are going to have a little company out there in the park. Spend a little time with our target audience. Maybe they'll help you get into the spirit of the place.
What does he mean by target audience?
Hammond turns toward the door of the center and throws his arms out expansively.
Kids!
Two kids standing in the doorway to the center break into the broad smiles. Tim, the boy, is about 9 years old. Alexis, his sister, looks around 12.
Grandpa!
They race across the lobby and into Hammond's arms, knocking him over on the steps.
We miss you.
Thanks for the presents.
We love the presents.
Oh, you must be careful with me. Do you like the helicopter?
It was great. It drops. We were dropping.
Grant looks on. Exterior Visitor Center. Two modified Ford Explorers leap out of the underground garage beneath the Visitor Center. They move quietly with a faint electronic hum and straddle a partially buried metal rail in the middle of the road. They pull to a stop where the group is gathered. Ellie is off to the side with Alexis, introducing herself warmly. Hammond is with Malcolm, Grant, and Gennaro.
Have a heart, gentlemen. Their parents are getting a divorce and they need the diversion.
Hey, where are the brakes?
Brakes? No brakes. They're electric cars, guided by this track in the roadway and totally non-polluting, top of the line.
It's an interactive CD-ROM. Look, see, you just touch the right part of the screen and it talks about whatever you want.
Spared no expense. Have fun. I'll be watching from the control room. Come along, dear. You'll ride in the second car. I can promise you'll have a wonderful time there.
Oh, thank you so much. So we'll see you later then?
Hammond turns and heads back to the Visitor Center.
I'll ride with Dr. Sattler.
He turns and walks over to Ellie. Grant frowns, not liking this one bit. He moves to follow, but Tim cuts him off and stares up at him wide-eyed.
I read your book.
Oh yeah? Great.
Grant heads for the rear car. Tim follows.
You really think dinosaurs turned into birds? And that's where all the dinosaurs went?
Grant opens the door of the real car and climbs in. Tim follows.
Well, a few species maybe evolved along those lines. Yeah.
A mechanical voice intones from inside.
2 to 4 passengers to a car, please. Children under 10 must be accompanied by an adult.
Tim is right behind Grant, so Grant keeps moving across the back seat of the car and out the other door, but Tim follows.
Because they sure don't look like birds to me. I heard a meteor hit the Earth and made this 100-mile crater someplace down in Mexico.
No, listen,
Tim.
Which car are you planning on?
Whichever one you are.
Grant goes to the front car again, opens the rear door, and holds it out for Tim, who climbs in the back seat, rattling on and on.
Then I heard about this thing in Omni, about the meteor making all this heat that made a bunch of diamond dust, and that changed the weather, and they died because of the weather. Then my teacher told me about this other book by a guy named Baker, and he said the dinosaurs died of a bunch of diseases.
Slam! Grant closes the car door on Tim. He turns and heads for the rear vehicle and bumps right into Lex.
She said I should ride with you because it would be good for you.
Grant looks over at Ellie, annoyed.
She is a deeply neurotic woman.
Cut to interior control room. The Jurassic Park control room looks like a mission control for a space launch with several computer terminals and dozens of video screens that display images of various dinosaurs taken from all over the park. There's a large glass map of the island at the front of the room that's lit up with a notification code next to it. But the players about the mood among last-minute Hammond is a chronic warrior.
A tropical storm about 75
Hammond
miles.
sighs
Go
and
swing
looks
south like the last one.
punches the Bear Visitor Center. Gennaro, Tim, and Lex. They pass through two enormous primitive gates, torch blazing on either side. Exterior park. In the rear car, the Explorer speakers welcome to Jurassic Park. A familiar voice.
All right, Cate.
Exterior, Jurassic Park Day. In the rear car, the Explorer speakers blare with fanfare of trumpets, and the interior video screen flashes welcome to Jurassic Park. A familiar voice comes over the speaker.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. You're now entering the lost world of prehistoric past, a world, creatures long gone from the face of the earth, which you're now privileged to see for the first time.
Control room. Hammond watches the monitor. His grandchildren are enjoying themselves.
By the way, that's James Earl Jones. We spared no expense.
In the park, the fences were retaining walls, were covered with greenery and growth to heighten the illusion of moving through the jungle. In the front car,
the accident took place in a restricted area. It would not have been available to public access, so how can the safety of the public be called into question?
the cars come to the top of the low-rise where the break in the foliage gives them a view down a sloping field that is broken by a river. The tour voice continues.
To the right, you will see a herd of first dinosaurs on our tour called the Dilophosaurus.
In the front car, Tim and Lex practically slam up against the windows to get a look.
The safety, that's the problem I had to answer.
I can't see.
What are you looking for?
Dilophosaurus.
In the rear car, Grant looks at his map. Ellie, hearing the voice, reacts.
Oh, shit.
Dilophosaurus.
Grant, Malcolm, and Ellie press against the windows. Down near the riverbank, there are a lot of beautiful plants, but no signs of a herd of anything. The tour voice continues anyway.
One of the earliest carnivores we now know Dilophosaurus is actually poisonous, spitting its venom at its prey, causing blindness and eventually paralysis, allowing the carnivore to eat at his leisure. This makes Dilophosaurus a beautiful but deadly addition to Jurassic Park.
Corny, scary music plays over the speaker. In the front car,
there's nothing there.
In the rear car,
Alan, where?
Grant and the others sit back, disappointed.
Damn.
On the road, the cars move on. As they roll past, we notice the headlights are on, even in the daytime. Cut to the interior of the control room. Ray Arnold watches his computer screen and the video monitors at the same time. Keep an eye on the cars as they move through the park. Hammond hovers over his shoulder.
Vehicle headlights are on and don't respond. Those shouldn't be running off the car batteries.
He signs and reaches down for the clipboard hanging next to his chair to jot this down.
Item 151 on today's glitch list. We've got all the problems of a major theme park and a major zoo, and the computer's not even on its feet yet.
Hammond shakes his head and turns to the technician on his right, who still has his back to them, watching a Costa Rican game show on one of the monitors and drinking a Jolt Cola.
Dennis, our lives are in your hands, and you have butterfingers.
The technician turns around in his chair and extends his arm in a Christ-like pose as we get a good look at him, and we get the sinking feeling that we've seen him somewhere before. And we have. Dennis Nedry is the man who accepted a suitcase full of cash in San Jose.
I am totally unappreciated in my time. We can run the whole park from this room with minimal staff for up to 3 days. You think that kind of automation is easy or cheap? Do you know anybody who can network 8 connection machines and debug 2 million lines of code for what I bid this job? Because I'd sure as hell like to see them try.
I am sorry about your financial problems. I really am, but they are your problems.
You're right, John. You're absolutely right. Everything's my problem.
I will not be drawn into another financial conversation with you, Dennis. I really will not.
I don't think there's been any debate. There's no debate. My mistakes.
I don't blame people for their mistakes, but I do ask that they pay for them.
Thanks, Dad.
Dennis, the headlights.
I'll debug the tour program when they get back, okay? It'll eat a lot of computer cycles. Parts of the system may go down for a while. Don't blame me if I am plain losing memory.
Muldoon, who has been hovering near the video monitors as always, turns toward them annoyed.
Quiet, all of you. They're coming to the Tyrannosaur paddock.
Cut to exterior Tyrannosaurus paddock. The two explorers drive along the high ridge and stop at the edge of the large open plain that is separated from the road by a 15-foot fence, clearly marked with danger signs and ominous-looking electrical posts. Tim, Lex, and Gennaro are pressed forward against the windows, eyes wide, waiting for you-know-who. In the rear car, the voice of the radio drones on, but Grant, Ellie, and Malcolm aren't even listening anymore, dying of anticipation.
The mighty Tyrannosaurus arose late in dinosaur history. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 150 million years, but it wasn't until the last.
Will you turn that thing off?
Ellie flips a switch and they wait in silence, except for Malcolm, who looks at the ceiling, thinking aloud.
God creates dinosaurs. God destroys dinosaurs. God creates man. Man destroys God. Man creates dinosaurs.
Dinosaur eats man. Woman inherits the earth.
Hold on, we'll try to tempt the Rex.
In the paddock, there's low humming sound. Out in the middle of the field, a small cage rises up into view, lifted on hydraulics from underground. The cage bars slide down, leaving the cage's occupant standing alone in the middle of the field. It's a goat, one leg chained to a stake. It looks around confused and bleats plaintively. In the front car, Lex and Tim look at the goat with widely different reactions.
What's going to happen to the goat?
Excellent.
He's going to eat the goat?
What's the matter, kid? Ain't you never had lamb chops?
I happen to be a vegetarian.
In the rear car,
T-Rex doesn't want to be fed. He wants to hunt. Can't just suppress 65 million years of gut instinct.
in the paddock, the goat waits and waits. From the explorer's 6 faces, watch it expectantly. The goat tugs on its chain. It walks back and forth, nervous. It bleats. In the rear car, Grant watches, his eyes glued. His breathing became a little more rapid. In the front car, Tim and Lex can't tear their eyes away. In the paddock, finally the goat lays down. In the rear car, everyone sits back, disappointed again, as the cars pull forward to continue the tour. Malcolm picks up the microphone.
Now, eventually, you're going to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right? Hello? Hello? Anyone there?
Interior control room. Hammond just shakes his head as Malcolm's voice comes through.
I really hate that man.
Exterior park day. Grant gets into the seat, leaving Malcolm behind Ellie. He longingly looks out the opposite window while Malcolm rattles to Ellie.
You see, the Tyrannosaur doesn't obey set patterns or park schedules. It's an essence of chaos.
I'm still not clear on chaos.
It simply deals with unpredictability in complex systems. Its only principle is the butterfly effect. A butterfly can flap its wings, and hiking in Central Park, you get rain instead of sunshine.
Ellie gestures with her hand to show this information has gone right over her head.
I made a flyby. I go too fast.
Looking out of the opposite window, Grant sees movement at the far end of a field. He sits bolt upright, trying to get a better look. Malcolm, looking for another example.
Here, give me your glass of water. We do a little experiment here.
He dips his hand into the glass of water. He takes Ellie's hand on his own.
Make like hieroglyphics. Now, watch the way the drop of water falls on your hand here.
He flicks his fingers and a drop falls on the back of Ellie's hand.
Ready? Freeze your hand. Now I'm going to do the same thing from the exact same place. Just which way is the drop going to roll?
Thumb.
Same way? Okay, let's see it. Oh, it changed. You know why? Because, and here's the principle, it's about tiny variations in the orientations of the hairs.
Alan, listen to this.
On your hand, the amount of blood descending in your vessels and imperfections in the skin.
Oh, imperfections.
Microscopic, never repeat, and vastly affect the outcome in the next way.
Unpredictability.
And even if we haven't seen it yet, I'm quite sure it's going on in this park right now.
There's definitely something out in that field, and Grant has to see it. He jerks the door handle and opens the door a few inches. He looks outside toward the freedom, then looks around to see if anybody's watching him. Malcolm lowers his voice, becoming more seductive now.
Life's a lot like that, isn't it? You meet someone by chance, you'll never meet again, and of course your whole future changes. It's dynamic. It's exciting, I think.
Grant throws the door open and bolts out of the moving car.
There, see, I'm right again.
Alan?
No one could have predicted Dr. Grant would suddenly jump out of a moving vehicle.
Alan?
She jumps out too and follows him into the field.
There's another example.
In the front car,
Colby.
Sorry. Hey, I want to go with them.
in the rear car,
See, here I am now by myself, talking to myself. That's chaos theory. What the hell am I doing here? I'm the only one who knows what's going on, etc., etc.
interior control room. Hammond, Muldoon, and Arnold stare at the video monitor incredulously as everyone now gets out of the cars and follows Grant down the hill. The cars roll on slowly, empty, their doors hanging open.
Mr. Hammond.
Stop the program. Stop the program.
There you are. How many times did I tell you we needed locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors?
Across the room, Dennis Nedry sneaks a peek at the video monitor. It shows an image of the steel door plainly marked embryonic cold storage, restricted. He looks to another monitor which is labeled East Dock. The monitor shows a supply ship moored at the dock. Its cargo is being uploaded and a large group of workers is filling aboard. Nedry has something in the counter where no one can see it. It's a can of shaving cream. Exterior park, Grant, Ellie, Gennaro, and the kids are out in the open field heading towards a small stand of trees. For the first time, we notice the sky is darkening rather early in the day. Tim dogs Grant's footsteps, so excited he can hardly keep his feet on the ground.
So, like I was saying, there's this other book by a guy named Baker, and he said dinosaurs died of a bunch of diseases. He definitely didn't say they turned into birds.
Gennaro is scared as hell, following the others, but his head darting left and right.
Alan, where are we going? You see something?
Anybody else think we shouldn't be doing this? Anybody else think we shouldn't be out here?
And his book was a lot fatter than yours.
Really?
Yours was fully illustrated, honey.
Anybody at all? Feel free to speak up.
Lex stumbles and Grant takes her hand to stop her from falling. She looks up at him and smiles. Grant smiles back and tries to recover his hand, but Lex holds tight. He's massively uncomfortable. Ellie notices. Suddenly, they all stop in their tracks. A huge smile spreads across the faces of both Tim and Grant. Grant walks forward. Tim follows.
Timmy.
Come back here, blanket head.
Fearless, Tim walks forward behind Grant.
Everybody, don't be scared.
Tim reaches the clearing and sees a triceratops, a big one, lying on its side, blocking the light at the end of the path. It has an enormous curved shell that flanks its head, 2 big horns over its eyes, and a third one on the end of its nose. It doesn't move, just breathes, loud and raspy, blowing up little clouds of dust with every exhalation. Grant stands next to Harding, almost in a daze.
Beautiful. Is it okay? Can I touch it?
Sure.
Grant walks next to the animal and strokes its head. Ellie moves forward to the animal.
Oh, Ellie, it's so beautiful. It's the most beautiful thing I ever saw.
My favorite.
They both kneel, checking the animal. He furrows his brow, noticing something, all professional curiosity now. The animal's tongue, dark purple, droops limply from its mouth.
Ellie, take a look at this.
Yeah, baby girl, it's okay.
She scratches the tongue with her fingernail. A clear liquid leaks from the broken blisters.
Microvesials. That's interesting.
Grant, fascinated, wanders all the way around to the back of the animal. Harding joins Ellie and hands her his penlight.
What are her symptoms?
Imbalance, disorientation, labored breathing. Seems to happen every 6 weeks or so.
6 weeks.
She takes a penlight from the veterinarian and shines it in the animal's eyes.
Are there pupillary effects from the tranquilizer?
Yes, mitotic pupils should be constricted.
These are dilated. Take a look.
They are? I'll be damned.
That's pharmacological, from local plant life.
She turns and studies the surrounding landscape, her mind's really at work, puzzling over each piece of foliage.
Is this West Indian lilac?
Yes, we know they're toxic, but the animals don't eat them.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
There's only one way to be positive. I have to see some droppings.
You won't be able to miss them.
Malcolm walks up to Ellie.
The Dino droppings?
Yeah.
She walks away. Malcolm looks on. Interior control room. Hammond and Arnold are watching the video monitors, displeased about something. Arnold is looking in one that gives them a view from the beach, looking out at the storm. The clouds beyond are almost black with a tropical storm.
That storm center hasn't dissipated our change of course. We're going to have to cut the tour short, I'm afraid. Pick it up again tomorrow where we left off.
You're sure we have to?
Not worth taking the chance, John.
Sustained winds 45 knots.
I'll tell them when they get back to the cars.
Ladies and gentlemen, last shuttle to the dock leaves in approximately 5 minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.
Damn!
Across the room, Nedry stares at his video monitor, watching the boat. He's on the phone with the mate, whose images he can see on the monitor. The seas around the dock are much rougher now.
Oh, is that me too? Okay. We're not well berthed here without a storm barrier. We may have to leave as soon as the last of the works are aboard.
No, you stick to the plan. You wait till they're back from the tour.
Exterior field. As the weather grows darker, Ellie, Grant, Harding, and Malcolm are grouped around an enormous spore of Triceratops excreta that stands at least waist high and is covered with buzzing flies.
That is one big pile of shit.
Ellie has plastic gloves on that reach up to her elbows and is just withdrawing her hand from the middle of the dung.
You're right. There's no trace of lilac berries. It's just so weird, though. She shows all the classic signs of toxicity. Every 6 weeks.
She turns and walks out to the open field a few paces, thinking. Malcolm watches her and looks back at the dung.
She's tenacious.
You have no idea.
You'll remember to wash your hands before you eat anything.
Interior control room. Nedry is busily and surreptitiously typing a series of commands into his console. On his screen, a cartoon hand winds up a cartoon clock, moving its second hand up to the 12. The clock rotates around to face us. It has a large green dollar sign in the middle. A big word appears on the screen. Option surrounded by a forbidding red box. Execute, it says. Exterior park. The skies are really foreboding now, and there's a sense of growing urgency. Ellie is by the animal, a short distance away from the group. Grant is near her, thinking.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Ellie, I've been thinking there's something about the periodicity doesn't add up.
I know.
Tim holds one of the smooth rocks up and calls out a little timidly.
These kind of look familiar.
Triceratops was a constant browser, and constant browsers would be constantly sick.
Constantly sick.
Not just every 6 weeks.
Yeah, I know.
I've seen pictures of these.
Grant turns and looks at him, a little annoyed.
In your fully illustrated book.
Grant just rolls his eyes, but Ellie comes over and checks out the stones.
Alan, gizzard stones.
She throws Grant one of the stones. They look at each other in amazement. As before, when they get excited, they talk right over each other.
That's it. It explains the periodicity.
The undigested state of the berries because
it's totally incidental. Unrelated to the feeding pattern.
What are you guys saying?
It's simple. See, some animals like her don't have teeth.
Like birds.
Like birds. What happens is they swallow the stones and hold them in a muscular sac in their stomachs.
A gizzard.
Which is called a gizzard, and it helps them mash their food. And what happens after a while...
What happens is that after a while, the stones get smooth every 6 weeks so the animal regurgitates them.
Barfs them up.
And swallows fresh ones.
And when she swallows the stones, she swallows the poison berries too. That's what makes her sick. Good work, Tim.
She looks at Grant pointedly. Tim looks up at Grant too, smiling from ear to ear. Grant grunts, not so easily convinced. Thunder rumbles as the storm overhead is about to bust loose. Gennaro, scared of more than one thing now, puts his foot down.
Doctors, if you please, I have to insist that we get moving.
Oh, if it's all right, I'd like to stay with Dr. Harding and finish with the trike. Is that okay?
Sure, I've got a gas-powered Jeep. I can drop her at the visitor center before I make the boat with the others.
I'll catch up with you. You can go with the others.
You sure?
I'll just finish. Yeah, I want to finish.
There's a lightning flash now with a tooth-rattling thunderclap right on its heels.
Now.
Grant turns and follows the others, Lex right in his tracks. Ellie and Harding go back to the Triceratops, which is starting to come back to life. As Grant reaches the Explorer, he turns back for one last look at Ellie. He raises his hand to wave, but she's turned the other way. Feeling silly, he drops his hand and goes into the woods. Just as he does, Ellie turns and waves at him, but with his back turned, she misses it too. In this way, they say goodbye. Back at the cars, as the reflections of the group approach, the first raindrops fall on the windshields of the tour vehicles. They're big, fat drops, and they kick up little clouds of dust just as they smack the glass. It's going to be a hell of a storm. Exterior park. It's near dark now. The wind is whipped up and the trees are swaying. Interior control room. Hammond is with Ray Arnold staring at the video screens.
Found a way to reroute through the program and turn the cars around the rest area loop.
Unlock the storm. Get my grandchildren on the radio, will you? I don't want them to worry about a wee bit of rain.
Arnold reaches for the hand microphone. Across the room, Dennis Nedry, sweat forming in his upper lip now, is staring at his video monitor. The supply boat is still docked on the island shore, but is now being buffeted away by the heavy waves. Nedry whispers sharply into the phone, arguing with the mate of the ship again, who he can see on the video monitor.
Jack, that's you. There's nothing I could do. If the captain says we gotta go, we gotta go.
No, listen to me. You got to give me this time. I did a test run on this thing, and it took me 20 minutes. I thought I could do it in 15. You've got to give me 15 minutes.
No promises. No promises.
I'll be there in 10.
Arnold snaps a button on his console.
Visitor vehicles are on their way back to the garage.
So much for our first tour. 2 no-shows and a sick Triceratops.
It could have been worse, John. It could have been a lot worse.
Nedry stands up. He's shaking in his shoes, but trying like hell to be casual.
Anybody want to cook? Anybody wants from the machines or soda or something? I had too many sweets. I thought I could get something sweet.
Hammond and Arnold shake their heads. Nedry starts to leave, then turns back with an afterthought that is so rehearsed it's almost obvious.
Oh, I finished debugging the phones, but the system's compiling for 18 minutes or 20. So some minor systems may go off, on and off for a while. There's nothing to worry about. Simple thing.
Okay, it's enough.
Nedry turns, stretches one finger out to his screen, and selects an option. Execute. At the same time, he presses the start button on his digital stopwatch. He holds it in his hand. A digital clock on the computer screen starts to tick down from 60 seconds, and a musical clock starts to sound too, something like the Jeopardy theme. He starts to leave, but returns when he remembers the shaving cream can. He grabs it and leaves. Exterior Park Road. Night was completely fallen now, and the rain has started. It's a tropical storm, the rain falling in drenching sheets on the roofs and hoods of the Explorers, which are making their way slowly back to the visitor center. In the rear car, Grant and Malcolm are alone. Grant is staring out the window, lost in his thoughts.
You got any kids?
Oh, me? Oh, hell yes. 3. I love them. I love kids. I think all Canada does have it.
Takes a flask from his jacket pocket and unscrews the top. His expression darkens.
Same with wives, for that matter.
You're married?
Occasionally. Always on the lookout for the future ex-Mrs. Malcolm.
Interior fertilization lab. Nedry waits outside the silver door marked embryonic cold storage, staring at the digital stopwatch in his hand.
Two, one.
On cue, the security lock panel goes dark and the door clunks ajar. In the cooler, Nedry hurries in and flips open the hatch on the bottom of the shaving cream can, revealing slotted compartments inside. He goes to the rack of dozens of thin glass slides. A sign says, "Viable embryos, handle with extreme care." He takes the slides out of the rack one by one. They're labeled Stegosaurus, Apatosaurus, Tyrannosaurus rex, and puts them into the can. control room. Arnold is staring at his terminal, puzzled. On the screen, glowing red and blue lines are blinking off in succession.
What?
Hammond comes up behind him and does Robert Muldoon.
What?
The door security systems are shutting down.
Well, Nedry said a few systems would go offline, didn't he?
Interior rear car. Grant and Malcolm still wait in their car. They don't notice, but the video screen in the middle of their front console suddenly goes black. Malcolm continues their conversation.
By the way, Dr. Sattler, she sounds like available, is she?
Why?
Why? Oh, I'm sorry. Are you two, best of luck.
The cars jerk to a stop. The lights in the vehicles along the road go out, plunging them into blackness. Grant jerks his hands away from the steering column, immediately assuming it's his fault.
What'd I touch?
You haven't touched anything. You stopped.
I must have touched something. This happens all the time, and it must be my fault. Machines hate me.
Machines hate you?
Yeah, they hate me.
Want to talk about this?
No.
Exterior park night. Nedry's Jeep splashes out up to the giant gates that lead into Jurassic Park. Nedry jumps out and hurried to the control panel on the side of the cement supports. He flicks the switch and gates click unlock. He jumps back into the car and noses into the gates, shoving them open far enough to drive through. He roars into the park grounds. Exterior control room. Ray Arnold stares at his terminal, aghast, as a row upon row of colored lights crawls off his screen.
Oh, what the hell? What the hell?
What now?
Fences are failing all over the park. A few minor systems, he said.
Fine, Nedry. Take the vending machines.
The monitors are failing.
Muldoon heads for the door just as all the video monitors in the control room go out with a faint electronic zip. The three of them freeze for a moment, looking at each other. The tension in the room goes up a notch.
Use Nedry's terminal. Get it back on. He can debug later.
Arnold pushes off on the floor and whizzes over to Nedry's master terminal in his chair. With one stroke of his arm, he brushes all the loose junk off Nedry's station. Junk food, soda cans, torn apart magazine pages. He tries to work.
God, look at this workstation.
The Jeopardy music is still playing, a little faster now. Muldoon steps forward, growing alarmed.
The Raptor fence are now, are they?
No, they're still on.
Why the hell would we turn the others off?
Exterior Park Road. A wire mesh fence in front of us is a very clear sign. Danger, electrified fence. This door cannot be opened when fence is armed. A hand reaches out, grabs the fence by a bare wire, flips latch, and shoves the door open. No sparks fly. Nedry runs from the fence back of his Jeep, drops it in gear, and tears off down the road. The rain is absolutely flowing down now. The road is rapidly turning into mud. In the Jeep, Nedry can barely see through the windshield. He's driving as fast as possible, checking his watch every few seconds. He leans forward, squinting to see through the windshield, wiping off the condensation with his free hand. A fork in the road rushes into view. He jumps on the brakes. Too late. The Jeep careens into a signpost.
Shit!
He throws the door open and hurries to the fallen sign, to the docks. He props it up. The directional arrow swings hopelessly on the nail. He clenches his jaw and growls. Soaked, he stomps back to his car. Although he doesn't look too convinced, he drops the car in gear and speeds off to the left. Exterior control room. Hammond still hovers over Arnold's shoulder while he works at Nedry's terminal. Arnold mutters to himself as he tries another command.
Access main program grid.
He punches a button, but a buzzer sounds and a little cartoon image of Nedry appears on the screen and waves his little finger disapprovingly.
You didn't say the magic word.
Please, goddammit, I hate this happen crap.
He smacks the top of the monitor, furious. The game show music plays still faster.
Hold Nedry's people in Cambridge.
Arnold whisks across the floor in his chair and snatches up the nearest phone. He punches for an outside line.
Phones are out, too.
Where did the vehicle stop?
Exterior Tyrannosaurus paddock. Bah! The goat was brought up from the underground earlier, is still tethered to the same place, leading into the pouring rain. The two explorers are still in the middle of the road. A man's form races back to the front car to the rear car. In the rear car, Grant, soaking wet, gets back into the car and loses the door behind him. Malcolm turns to him.
The radio's out too.
Oh.
Yeah, the radio's out too. That blood-sucking lawyer said to stay put.
He's okay?
Well, I didn't ask. Why wouldn't they be?
Just get scared?
What's to be scared about? It's just a little hiccup in the power.
I say I was scared.
Didn't say you were scared.
I don't.
Fine.
Malcolm turns and looks out the driving rain and the fence that stands between them and the Tyrannosaurus paddock. He is scared. In the front car, Gennaro, Lex, and Tim wait bored. The rain drums off the roof monotonously. Tim is upside down in the front seat. Lex pushes his legs up and he swings them down.
Colby.
In the front car, Gennaro, Lex, and Tim wait, bored. The rain drums on the roof monotonously. Tim is upside down in the front seat. Lex pushes his legs up and he swings them down.
Up and down, up and down.
I can't believe we invited Ian Malcolm.
People were getting bloody noses, things on your head, aneurysms.
I think Dr. Grant is really smart.
Now he'll write a bunch of letters and papers, go on Larry King Live, and say we're irresponsible.
Tim climbs into the back seat. Lex hits him with her hat as he moves by her.
Don't scare me.
Tim finds something under the seat and sits up abruptly, holding what looks like a heavy-duty pair of safety goggles.
Hey, where did you find those?
In a box under my seat.
Are they heavy?
Yeah.
Then they're expensive. Put them back.
He leans back and closes his eyes. Tim ignores him and puts on the goggles. Tim stares at the back window of the Explorer with Grant and Malcolm in it behind them. The image is bright and fluorescent green.
Oh, cool. Night vision.
As Tim watches, the door of the rear Explorer opens and a hand reaches out, holding the empty canteen out to catch some rainwater. In the rear car, Grant pulls the canteen back in, closes the door, and takes a drink. He and Malcolm wait. In the front car, Tim continues to stare out the back window with the goggles. He swings his legs, but suddenly stops. He feels something. He pulls off the goggles and turns back. He moves to the back seat with Lex, who is tapping her hat, and reaches forward to still her hand. Boom, boom, boom.
Did you feel that?
She didn't answer. Tim leans over to the front passenger seat and looks at 2 plastic cups of water that sit in the recessed holes on the dashboard. As he watches, the water in the glasses vibrates, making concentric circles. Then it stops. Then it vibrates again, rhythmically, like from footsteps. Boom, boom, boom.
What is... Maybe it's the power trying to turn back on?
Tim jumps into the back seat and puts the goggles on again.
What is that?
What is what?
Tim turns and looks out the side window. He can see the area where the goat is tethered, or was tethered. The chain is still there, but the goat is gone. Bang! They all jump, and Lex screams as something hits the plexiglass sunroof of the Explorer hard. They look up. It's bloody, dismembered goat leg.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, Jesus!
Tim whips around to look at the side window again. His mouth pops open, but no sound comes out. Through the goggles, he sees an animal claw, a huge one, gripping the cables of the electrified fence. Tim whips the goggles off and presses forward against the window. He looks up, then cranes his neck back further to look out the sunroof. Past the goat's leg, he can see Tyrannosaurus Rex. It stands maybe 25 feet high, 40 feet long from nose to tail, with enormous box-like head that must be 5 feet long by itself. The remains of the goat hang out from Rex's mouth, and it tilts its head back as it swallows the animal in one big gulp. Gennaro can't even speak. His hand claws for the door handle. He shoulders it open, then takes off out of the car.
He left us alone. Dr. Grant, he left us. He left us.
On the road, Gennaro runs away as fast as he can, right past the second car towards a cement block outhouse 20 or 30 yards away. He reaches it, ducks inside, and pulls the door after him. But there's no latch, just a round hole in the unfinished door. Gennaro backs into a stall, frantic. The whole bathroom begins to shake. In the rear car, Grant and Malcolm turn in the direction Gennaro went.
Where does he think he's going?
You gotta go, you gotta go.
Malcolm looks the other way out the passenger window. As he watches, the fence begins to buckle, its posts collapsing into themselves, the wires snapping free.
What was that all about?
Grant now turns and watches as, ahead of them, the danger sign smacks down on the hood of the first Explorer. The entrance fence is coming down, the post collapsing, the cable snapping as the T-Rex chews its way through the barrier. They watch in horror as the T-Rex steps over the ruined barrier and into the middle of the park road. It just stands there for a moment, swinging its head from one vehicle to the other. In the front car, the Rex strides around the side of the car and peers down from high above. Tim leaps into the front seat and pulls the driver's door shut. Both kids are terrified, breathing hard, unable to speak.
Please, please.
In the rear car,
Boy, do I hate being right all the time.
Look at that.
the T-Rex turns and strides quickly back towards them. It circles slowly, bending over to look at them through the window. Grant and Malcolm sit trembling in the front seat, watching as these giant legs stride past their window.
Keep absolutely still. Its vision is based on movement.
You sure?
Relatively.
Malcolm freezes as the Rex bends down and peers right through his window. The dinosaur's giant yellowing eye is only slightly smaller than the entire pane of glass. The T-Rex pulls away slightly, then reaches down and bumps the car with his snout, rocking it. In the front car, Lex is rummaging around in the back cargo area looking for something, anything. She finds a flashlight. On the road, the front car lights up from within as Lex switches on the flashlight. The dinosaur raises its head. It turns slowly from the second car to the first car, drawn by the light. Making a decision, it strides over to the first vehicle, fast. In the front car, Tim and Lex can only stare out of the windows as the T-Rex reaches their car and starts to circle it. The Rex bends down and looks through the front windshield, then the side window. Tim is eye to eye with the thing for a second, and the dinosaur raises its head up above the car.
I'm sorry.
Turn it off, Lex. Turn it off.
Tim climbs over the seat and joins Lex.
Where's the button then?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Why did you do this?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
The kids look up through the sunroof as the head goes higher and higher and higher, and the Rex turns, looks straight down at them through the sunroof, opens its mouth wide and roars. The windows rattle. Lex screams. The flashlight goes on again. The Tyrannosaurus strikes. Smash! The thing's head hits the plastic lid, knocking the whole frame right out of the roof on the car down into the vehicle. The bubble falls down into Tim and Lex, trapping them, and the animal lunges down through the hole, snapping at them. The plexiglass holds through and protects Tim and Lex, even as it pins them to their seats. The T-Rex continues to push down, and the glass groans, crack lines racing across it. Tim, whose feet were caught above him, pushes back, only an inch of glass between him and the dinosaur's teeth. In the rear car, Grant and Malcolm watch in horror as the dinosaur claws at the side of the vehicle with one of its powerful thigh legs. It pushes, starting to tip the car over.
Oh my God.
You gotta do something.
What? What can we do?
There's gotta be something.
Grant looks around, climbs over the seat. He tears apart the back area, searching, and finally finds a metal case. He opens it, finding flares. He grabs one and moves quickly back to the driver's seat and opens the door. Malcolm grabs a flare too. In the front car, the glass windows shatter and the kids are thrown to the side. The Explorer tilts. The Rex bends down and nudges the car with his head, rolling up on its side. Tim and Lex tumble around. On the road, the T-Rex starts to nudge the Explorer towards the barrier. Over the barrier, there's a gentle terraced area at one side where the Rex emerged from. But the car isn't next to that. It's next to a sharp precipice, representing a 50 or 60-foot drop. The car, upside down now, is pushed near the edge. The Rex towers over the car like a dog. It puts one foot on the chassis and tears an undercarriage with its jaws. Biting at anything it can get a hold of, it rips the rear axle free, tosses it aside, and bites into a tire. The tire explodes, startling the animal. Inside the car, Tim and Lex are trapped inside the rapidly flattening car. As the frame continues to buckle, they crawl toward an open rear window. The car car collapsing behind them. Mud and rainwater pour into the little space that's left. Tim is ahead, nearing the back window when there is a crunch and a seat comes down, pinning him. On the road, the dinosaur backs up, dragging the Explorer, swinging it left and right. It seems ready to fling over the edge. Grant gets out of his car. He's holding a flare in one hand, which he pulls the top off of. Bright flames shoot out the end of it.
Hey! Over here!
The T-Rex turns and looks at him. Grant waves the flare slowly in front of him and from side to side. The T-Rex follows his moving arm, eyes locked on the flare. Grant looks over to the wall, tosses the flare over the edge of the barrier. The Rex lunges after it. Unclear with Grant's plan, Malcolm leaps out of the car and tries to scare up the T-Rex's attention with his own newly lit flare. He begins to wave at the animal. Grant sees him.
You're muted.
Noted.
Erik, you're muted.
Ian, freeze! Freeze! Get rid of the flare!
Get the kids!
Malcolm inches back slowly, then takes off, running for his life down the road. He runs to the cement block outhouse Gennaro went to earlier. The T-Rex sees the movement, it whirls around and takes off after Malcolm, fast. Malcolm runs as fast as he can, approaching the outside, just steps ahead of the T-Rex, but not far enough ahead. Without even slowing down, the Rex leans forward and flicks Malcolm into the air with its snout. It's just a nudge for the Rex, but it sends Malcolm sailing right through the wooden portion of the wall and into the building. In the restroom, Gennaro, who cowers in a corner, screams as the head of the T-Rex explodes through the front of the building, sending chunks of cement flying in all directions from inside. The roof Gennaro tries to protect himself from the falling junk. On the road, Grant gets to his feet and watches as the T-Rex noses around in the rubble. It seems to find something. It lunges, and Grant can hear Gennaro screaming, the sound piercing, until it abruptly stops. Grant springs over to the car.
Tim! Lex!
Dr. Grant! Dr. Grant!
He lays on the ground looking inside and sees Lex staring up at him, conscious, her face covered in mud.
Are you okay? Can you move? Tim, are you okay?
I'm stuck. The seat's got my feet.
Okay, Tim, I'll come back for you. I'll get Lex first.
He's knocked out. He's knocked out. Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant. Daddy.
Let's get you out.
Grant reaches in and drags her out.
You okay? Good girl.
Grant tries to find Tim.
Tim? Tim?
Lex, staring over his shoulder, screams. Grant whirls, covering her mouth at the same time.
Shh. Don't move. Can't see us if we don't move.
Lex looks at him like he's crazy, but freezes. They wait. Boom! A big T-Rex footprint smacks down in front of them as the dinosaur approaches the car again. It leans down right past them and sniffs the car. Ragged bits of flesh and clothing hanging from its teeth. Not finding anything, the dinosaur swings its head away, snorting loudly through its nose. Grant's hat flies off his head. Still, he doesn't move. The Rex walks to the back of the car. It bends down. Whop! The car spins and is pushed from behind the Rex. Grant and Lex are pushed in front of it, helpless. They scramble around on their knees, trying to keep ahead of the car, which the Rex is now pushing even closer to the edge of the barrier. Grant and Lex crawl quickly, but their car is moving faster, catching up on them. Inside the car, Tim awakens and screams. He tries to untangle himself. On the road, the T-Rex looms over Lex and Grant, who are trapped between the car and the 60-foot drop. Inside the car, the Rex bends down and sees Tim. Tim backs away furiously, but there's almost no room to move in there. The Rex opens its mouth wide and stretches its tongue into the car. Tim screams and kicks as the tongue tries to wrap around him, but it fails and withdraws from the car. On the road, the T-Rex still cries to get into Grant and Lex, pushing the car, spinning on its roof. Grant and Lex scramble, trying to avoid being caught by the T-Rex and crushed by the car.
This way.
The back of the car almost crushes them against the barrier.
Get back!
They move. As the Rex continues to move, the car follows the edge. Grant finally gets on the wall. Lex follows. The T-Rex roars in frustration. It bends down for one final lunge at the car. Grant sees it coming. He grabs one of the dangling fence cables on the other side of the barrier.
Here, grab a hold of me.
She wraps her arm around his neck. He scrambles to the edge of the barrier and starts to climb down.
Timmy! Timmy!
The cable is slick with rain, and it's all Grant can do to hang on as he and Lex slide rapidly down. Above them, the vehicle is now teetering over the edge, threatening to drop right on top of them if they didn't hurry. Grant gasped as Lex has unwittingly started to choke him as she holds on for dear life.
You're choking me.
The car groans nearly over the edge now. Grant looks to the side. There are other cables out of the line of the car's impending drop. His feet scrambling along the concrete wall. Grant tries to swing over towards one.
Here, grab a wire.
But he falls short. His momentum carries them back the other way, but the second swing, Lex manages to grab hold of the cable.
Got it!
The car falls. Lex and Grant are cleared by inches, clinging to the second cable.
Timmy!
The car crunches into the leafy top of a tree, resting on the roof some 15 feet down below them. The T-Rex stares down at them, but they are safely out of reach. It roars once more in a final fit of frustration, turns. Interior control room. John Hammond is livid.
I will kill Nedry. I'll kill him.
Muldoon bursts through the door.
Well? There's no sign of him anywhere.
Interior control room at night. John Hammond is livid.
I'll kill Nedry. I'll kill him.
Muldoon bursts through the door.
Well?
There's no sign of him anywhere.
The game show music is louder and faster now. Very annoying.
Ray, will you please stop that music?
Ray Arnold's cigarette is practically burning his lips down to almost nothing in his mouth. He hovers over Nedry's computer terminal, which is a mass of incomprehensible commands that scroll by quickly as he futilely examines each one of them. Muldoon paces. Ellie stares at Arnold in amazement.
Are we getting anywhere with these procedures of yours? I mean, what's hanging us up?
I ran a key check on every stroke Nedry entered today. It's all pretty standard stuff until this one.
What one?
He points to his computer screen to a specific series of commands. The others crowd over his shoulder and stare at the screen.
Key check space, key check off, safety. He's turned the safety systems off. He doesn't want anybody to see what he's about to do. Now look at this next entry. It's the kicker. WHT.RBT.OBJ. Whatever it did it all. But with key check off, the computer didn't file the keystrokes. Only way to find them now is to search the computer's lines of code one by one.
How many lines of code are there?
About 2 million.
2 million. Great. That would help.
Robert, I wonder if you would be kind enough to take a gas jeep and bring back my grandchildren.
Sure.
I'm going with them.
They head for the door. Hammond turns, staring out the windows at the front of the control room. He's gone pale and he's sweating, wrapped up in a million thoughts. Behind him, Ray Arnold's voice calls to him, but he doesn't hear it.
John.
Hammond leans on his cane, and for the first time, he looks like he's actually using it.
John.
Hammond turns, finally hearing him.
I can't get Jurassic Park back online without Dennis Nedry.
Exterior Park Road. As the rain continues to pour down, a gas-powered Jeep roars down the park road. Interior Jeep night. Dennis Nedry drives his Jeep as fast as he can in the treacherous conditions. He mutters to himself, shaking his head.
Should have been there by now. Should have been there.
He hauls it around a corner and looks down, checking his watch. When he looks back up, his eyes go wide. There's a white wood guardrail fence right in front of him. He stands on the brakes as hard as he can, the Jeep fishtails skidding out of control in the mud towards the fence. Nedry hauls the wheel hard to the side to try to control the skid, but the Jeep skids off the road, going halfway over the mudded embankment.
God damn it.
He drops the car in reverse and hits the gas. The wheel spins, sending mud flying everywhere. But the Jeep goes nowhere, just digs in further. Nedry can't believe it. Frustrated, he gets out of the Jeep. He stops suddenly. He can see another park road down the sloping embankment about 20 feet below. There's a large sign alongside the road. Nedry leans forward excitedly to get a better look. It reads 2 East Dock. He scrambles to the front of the Jeep. On the hillside, he cranks a winch in its coil on the front end of the Jeep.
No problem. Push this sucker off the thing, tie it to a thing, pull it down the thing, and pull it back up.
He loses his balance and slips, falling back on his rear. He slides down the muddy embankment across the road below. Pissed, he gets to his knees and searches for his glasses.
Where are my glasses? I can't afford new ones.
He stands and grabs the winch. He goes to a sturdy-looking tree on the other side.
You can make it.
From the distance, there's a soft hooting sound. There's some movement in the bushes. Nedry looks around for the source of the sound and movement. He doesn't find it. He nervously checks his watch and goes back to the winch, but faster.
No problem. Pop this thing right down.
The hooting comes again and Nedry turns. Again, nothing. A figure ducks around the tree and pops out on the other side, hooting playfully. Nedry looks around on one side of the tree, nothing. It pops up on the other side, hooting again. And Nedry looks down, nothing. It seems like a friendly game of hide and seek, but he begins to get rattled.
That's nice. Gotta go. I'm getting out of here. Come on, you can make it.
He secures the winch and starts across the road, back up the embankment. He freezes as he feels something behind him. He turns around slowly and sees a Dilophosaur. It stands only about 4 feet high. It's spotted like an owl and has brilliant colored crest that flanks its head. It doesn't look very dangerous. In fact, it's kind of cute.
Oh, nice boy, nice boy. Okay, run along. I don't have anything for you. Go on, go on. Dinner time. Are you hungry? They'll feed you. Go, boy, girl, whatever.
Dilophosaur just stares at Nedry, tilting its head curiously. Nedry looks around on the ground and finds a stick. He picks it up and chucks it at the thing. He throws it as far as he can.
Nice, juicy stick. Fetch.
The Dilophosaur gets in the spirit of the game, but not the object.
Lame brain, what's the matter with you?
He shakes his head and starts back towards the Jeep, muttering to himself.
Walnut brain, extinct kangaroo. Hope I run over you on the way down.
He's near the top when the Dilophosaur suddenly hops out right in front of him, startling him. Nedry loses his balance and falls back right on his rear. He gets to his feet angry.
I said...
He picks up a stick and chucks it at the thing.
Beat it! What are you do?
The animal hisses. The brightly colored fan around its neck flares wildly. 2 bulbous sacs on either side of its neck inflate. It rears its head back again, and it spits. Spat! A big glob of something wet smacks into the middle of his chest, reaches down and touches the goo that's dribbling down his slicker.
That's disgusting.
Spat! Another glob of goo smacks into the highlight right next to Nedry's head. He stands up, a look of confusion crosses his face. He lifts his right hand, the one that touched the spit, and it looks strangely, flexing at it. Pow! This time the loogie hits Nedry right smack in the face. He screams and rubs it away.
Oh, God!
Because it hurts like hell. Nedry falls back, clawing at his eyes in excruciating pain. He pulls his hands away, starting to hyperventilate. He flails, his arms in front of him, blinking a mile a minute, but blinded. He staggers forward to try to get into the Jeep. He gets the door open, but smacks his head on the door frame and collapses. The can of shaving cream flies out of his jacket pocket and tumbles into runoff water down the muddy hillside. Nedry gets to his feet again and staggers in the general direction of the Jeep. He reaches the open door and feels his way in. He slams the door. There is another hoot from inside the Jeep. Nedry turns and screams. The Dilophosaur is right there in the passenger seat. It hisses louder than before. Its crest fans angrily, vibrating, reaching a crescendo. And the thing pounces, slamming Nedry back against the driver's window, shattering it as Nedry shrieks. Rain and blood wash over the shaving cream can, burying it. Exterior park grounds. The rain has all stopped now. Grant and Lex are at the bottom of the large barrier leading up to a park road. Like it or not, they're in the park now and are surrounded by thick jungle foliage on all sides. They're both beaten up, and Grant's face is covered in blood. He's bent over a big puddle, splashing water on his face, rinsing the blood off, trying to bring himself to. Poor Lex is scared as hell. She stands behind him, ramrod straight, her breath coming short, desperate gasp. Her eyes are wide, and she doesn't look like she can move. As Grant gets rid of the blood, his injury doesn't look so bad, just a gash on his forehead. He turns and looks up at the tree the explorer fell in. It's stuck there, nose down in the thickest top branches. Lex's gasps are getting louder. She's terrified.
Hey, come on. Don't. Just stop. Stop.
He touches her, but it's awfully awkward, more of a pat on the head than anything strong or reassured. But she responds to the contact, hurling herself forward, throwing her arms tightly around his waist. She clamps there, holding on for dear life, sobbing.
Lex, you gotta be quiet. Please, stop it. Shh.
This seems to quiet her.
Because if we make too much noise, he's going to hear us and come back.
Lex bursts out crying again, a wailing scream, nearly hysterical now. Grant holds her, no idea what to do. He turns and looks around.
Timmy! Timmy!
He hears a cracking sound. He looks up to the tree again. The explorer has fallen a few feet lower in the branches. Grant looks down at Lex, who is sitting on a rock.
Shh, I'm right here, Lex. I'm going to look after you. I'm going to help your brother. I want you to stay here and wait for me, okay?
You left us. You left us.
That's not what I'm going to do. Good?
Grant walks to the tree. Lex scampers into the culvert. Exterior tree. Grant takes a deep breath, grabs hold of the first branch, and starts his long climb. Fortunately, it's a good climbing tree. Its branches thick and regularly spaced. Grant moves at a good pace. He reaches the car's level on the driver's side 5 or 6 feet to one side of it. The car is in rough shape. It's much thinner than it used to be, the nose completely smashed in. The front wheels driven solidly into a thick branch. They are what hold it in place.
Tim?
Grant comes up to the car and looks in. Tim is huddled on the floor on the passenger side, frightened, hugging his knees to his chest. He looks up at Grant with a tear and blood-streaked face. His voice is barely audible.
I threw up.
That's okay. It's okay. Listen, give me your hand.
Tim doesn't move.
I won't tell anybody you throw up, okay? Just give me your hand.
He reaches out. Tim reaches too, but they're still about a foot apart. Grant grabs hold of the steering wheel to pull himself further in. The wheel turns. On the branch, the front wheel turns, losing a bit of its grip on the thick branch they're resting on. Tim and Grant grab hands. Grant holds on to him, getting an arm securely around his waist. They climb down. They stop on a branch.
Okay. It's not so bad, huh, Tim?
Yes, it is.
It's just like coming out of a treehouse. Oh, sorry. Indented.
It's like coming out of it. It's just like coming out of a treehouse. Did your dad ever build your treehouse, Tim? Huh?
No.
Me too. Okay. Well, the main thing about climbing is never look down. I mean, never.
This is impossible. How am I going? I can't make it. It's about 50 feet.
So am I going to help you with your foot?
What if the car falls?
Car groans far forward on the branch, which sags in their direction. They look up. The car begins to shift dramatically towards them.
Oh, no. Tim, go.
They climb down as fast as they can as the big branch that is supporting their car creaks, ready to give way any second.
Faster. Come on.
The branch breaks, disintegrates really, and the car falls straight at them. Grant and Tim let go of the branch they're on and fall, thudding into another branch a few feet down. The car smacks into the bug branch they just vacated and stops there. Grant and Tim are half climbing, half falling down the tree now, slipping in the resin-covered branches, just trying like hell to get out of the way. Creepow! The second branch breaks, and now the car smashes and crashes through a network of thinner branches, heading right for them. It hits open space and goes into a free fall. Grant turns and puts his arms out in defense, and the car stops, slamming into a thick branch just above him. Grant looks up, eyeball to eyeball with the front grille. The new branch starts to creak. Grant and Tim basically fall down the rest of the tree, the car bashing its way through right behind them. They jump at the last 6 or 7 feet and hit the ground hard. Grant grabs Tim and rolls with him to the side, just as the car smashes into the earth, no spurs, standing upright that way. They look up in relief, but the damn thing's still heading for them now, tipping over, falling straight at them, and there's no way they have time to get out of the way this time. So Grant just balls himself up on top of Tim to try to protect him, and crash, the Jeep falls on top of them. Grant, amazingly unhurt, looks up confused. They're inside the Jeep again, saved by the whole sunroof. Cut 2. Exterior culvert. Lex is still in the culvert, terrified, slowly banging her head against the wall. Grant is at the mouth of the culvert, carefully studying the rinky-dink map of the park he picked up during the slideshow.
Okay.
He's trying to get his bearings from the crude cartoon-like drawing on the map, but it's tough. He looks up, picking a direction, and shoves the map in his pocket decisively. He looks back in at Lex.
Lex, you're going to have to get out of there. Hiding isn't a rational solution. We have to improve our situation.
She doesn't move. Grant looks at Tim.
Tim's out here. He's okay.
Still nothing. Grant tries a new tact.
Of course, you could just wait in there while we go back and get help.
That's a good idea.
You'll probably be safe enough alone on your own.
I doubt it.
Maybe. It's hard to say.
Liar! You said you wouldn't leave.
I'm trying to use psychology to get you out of the drain, you know?
She just stares at him like he's nuts. Tim shakes his head as if to say, nice try. Grant calms his tone.
We can't go back the way we came. What we have is a free-range T-Rex on the road. There's fences on either side. If we meet them between here and the lodge, we'd have problems. But what this means is that this whole paddock is empty. It's safe.
It's safe?
It's safe.
It's safe.
Go. That's the way we're going to go. What do you say?
All right.
He's spoken calmly and confidently, so Lex crawls out of the culvert to stand next to him.
Good girl.
He kisses her hand and helps her crawl out of the culvert. Tim and Lex nod, and he starts off in the direction he indicated. They trail behind him.
Might be kind of slow, but it can't be more than 3 or 4 miles. I'd hope the Rex finished feeding by now, but let's not kid ourselves. Did you know a carnivore can eat up to 25% of its body weight in about one sitting? So he's probably just ready to move on to the main course by now.
He stops in the middle of the sentence, noticing he's alone. He turns around. Now both kids have scampered all the way back into the culvert, terrified. Exterior Park Road. Muldoon and Ellie race down the park road in an open-top Jeep like the one Nedry took before. Neither of them speak. They just stare ahead grimly, wondering what they're about to find.
There they are.
They round the corner and come to the top of the hill where the attack took place. The Jeep skids to a stop and they jump out. The road is rutted, muddy mess. The cement block house is a pile of rubble. One of the explorers is gone. The other stands untouched, both doors hanging open.
Oh, God. Where's the other car?
She runs to the explorer. Muldoon follows, looking around. At the explorer, Ellie leans in and looks around. Nobody's there. She and Muldoon walk towards the wreckage of the outhouse, calling out.
I think it's ahead of us.
Could be anywhere. With the fences down, it can go in and out of any paddock it likes.
They hear a moaning sound from somewhere in the wreckage of the restroom building, and they rush to it. Ian Malcolm lies on his back, semi-conscious, among the twisted wood and cement.
It's Malcolm.
He shines his light along the length of Malcolm's body. His shirt soaked with blood, but his right leg is even worse off. The right ankle is bent outward at a strange angle from his leg. The trousers flattened, soaked with blood. Malcolm's belt has been twisted around his thigh.
Put a tourniquet on. Ian? Ian?
Malcolm groans as he touches him, groggy.
Remind me to thank John for a lovely weekend.
The T-Rex roars again, but closer now. Ellie and Muldoon look at each other.
Can we chance moving him?
Please. Chance it.
Muldoon lays Malcolm as carefully as possible in the back of the Jeep.
Where are the kids?
Ellie looks around.
Lex? Tim?
She turns and looks back at the empty road. She's on the verge of tears, but is fighting them back.
Dr. Sattler, I've seen a lot of animal attacks. People just disappear. No blood, no trace. That's the way it happens.
No.
She walks to the edge of the road, her eyes following the deep ruts the explorer made when it went over the edge. Muldoon gets ready to leave.
Ellie, come on.
The other car!
Exterior clearing. Ellie and Muldoon's flashlight beams spray light on the base of the tree.
Dr. Grant?
Alan!
They find the wrecked explorer. Muldoon peers inside looking for anything.
Do you see anything?
I don't know.
The T-Rex roars again, closer still. Ellie nervously goes to the other side of the car and looks in.
Alan?
They're not here.
Ellie desperately searches the ground for any signs of Grant. She finds their footprints.
Thank God.
Exterior Park Road. Malcolm, laid out in the back of the Jeep, feels something strange. He looks down at one of the T-Rex footprints in the road. It's filled with water. The water in the puddle vibrates rhythmically. Malcolm's eyes widen. He looks around frantically.
Anybody hear that?
Exterior clearing. Ellie is still looking around to Muldoon's chagrin. Her flashlight falls on 3 sets of footprints in the mud.
Look.
With her flashlight, she follows the trail of footprints made. They lead to the jungle and disappear. Exterior Park Road. Malcolm staring wide-eyed at the rings in the water, which are getting bigger now.
It's an impact tremor. This is what it is.
Boom. Boom.
I'm fairly alarmed here.
Ellie and Malcolm come over the embankment, excited.
Gotta move. Go get here. Let's go. We gotta move. Get out of here right now. Go. Let's hurry. Let's get out of here.
They stop talking. The booming is louder now and faster, much faster. They look back over their shoulders.
Oh.
Ellie and Muldoon get into the Jeep. Muldoon's in the driver's seat.
Now, let's go. Right now.
The T-Rex smashes out of the jungle foliage, bursts into the road, and runs straight at them, moving at least 30 miles an hour.
Go.
Muldoon fumbles for the keys, turns the Jeep over, and slams it into gear. He drops the clutch, hits the gas, and tears ass out of there. But the Jeep is so slow to work with through the first few gears. Terrified, Ellie dares to look down at the side view mirror, which tells her objects are closer than they appear. And they sure are. The T-Rex is still gaining on the slowly accelerating Jeep. All 3 of them stare back at the Rex in terror.
Faster.
Let's go faster. Getting closer. Let's go faster.
Faster. Shit!
Let's go faster. Go. Open up. 5th gear. Here it comes. Sound at 5th gear. Go.
Which means they don't see the half-fallen tree branch right in front of them, blocking the path of the road. Muldoon looks back first and shouts.
Down!
They all duck. The windshield hits the branch and shatters as the Jeep flies ahead, really picking up speed now. The T-Rex just runs through the branch, smashing it entirely. They bounce around pretty bad. Malcolm is knocked into the front, and in so doing so, knocks the gear shift into neutral. The engine races. The T-Rex closes in again. Losing ground now, the dinosaur makes a final lunge for the Jeep and crunches into the left rear quarter panel.
Faster!
But Muldoon slams it back into gear and guns it. The T-Rex gives up, fading into the distance. They drive in silence for a few moments, all scared out of their wits.
Think they'll have that on the tour?
Exterior Park ground night. Grant, Lex, and Tim make their way through Jurassic Park. Far in the distance, there's another roar. Grant hears it, but tries not to show it.
Are you hearing this?
No, I didn't hear anything.
They keep walking, but now Grant is looking around for a safe place to hide. He looks up to the towering trees around him.
You both look pretty tired. I think we ought to get some rest.
He hears another roar.
Like about now. Come on, hurry up. Like this tree.
Why are we hurrying if there's nothing wrong?
What if we fall? I hate trees.
Exterior tree. Lex, Tim, and Grant climb. Grant is behind, watching the other 2, giving them a push up when they need it.
I hate trees.
They don't bother me.
Yeah, you weren't in that last one.
Now, near the top of the tree, the 3 of them sit there, dangling their legs, looking out over the park. It's an incredible view. They can see in all directions, and with the full moon, there's a lot of detail. Most striking of all are the dozens of sauropod heads at the end of long necks that tower over the park.
Hey, those are brontosauruses. Those are brachiosauruses.
It's okay to call them brontosauruses, Tim. It's a great name. It's a romantic name. It means thunder lizard.
Thunder lizard.
Yeah. Grant finds a solid web of branch and settles himself in it, leaning back against the trunk of the tree with a little room on either side of him. Lex nestles up to him on the branch. Grant is surprised, but accepts it. Tim climbs off to the side to a nook in the branch of his own. Silent for a moment, the 3 can hear the hoots of the animals they call. Some are almost musical.
Listen to that. They're singing. Of course, no one's ever heard one from a dinosaur before, but I could swear that sounds suspiciously to me like a mating call in an all-female environment.
He smiles, enchanted. He hoots himself, trying to imitate one of the calls. Immediately, 5 or 6 of the heads turn in their direction and hoot back.
No, shh, stop. Don't let the monsters come over here.
They're not monsters, Lex. They're just animals. And these are herbivores.
That means they only eat vegetables. But for you, I think they make an exception.
Tim.
Oh, I hate the other kind.
They're just doing what they do.
Dorkatops.
Straight A brainiac.
Could you guys possibly cool that for a...
Satisfied, Tim settles in for the night. Grant shifts to getting comfortable, but something in his pocket pinches him. He winces and digs it out. It's the velociraptor claw he unearthed so long ago in Montana. Yesterday, actually. He looks at it thinking a million thoughts, staring at this thing used to be so priceless.
What are you going to do now if you don't have to dig up dinosaur bones anymore?
I guess we'll just have to evolve too.
What do you call a blind dinosaur?
I don't know. What do you call a blind dinosaur?
A do you think he saw us? What do you call a blind dinosaur's dog?
You got me.
A do you think he saw us Rex?
Grant laughs. Both kids finally close their eyes, but after a moment, Lex pops hers open again.
If the dinosaur comes back while we're asleep?
I'll stay awake.
All night?
All night.
Grant lets the claw fall to the ground. Interior restaurant. Ellie comes into the darkened restaurant following the source of the flickering light. A candle burns at the table in the corner. Hammond sits at the table alone. There's a bucket of ice cream in the middle, and he's eating a dish of it, staring down morosely. Ellie draws up to the table, and Hammond looks up at her. His eyes are puffy, his hair is messed up. For the first time we see him, the fire is gone from his eyes.
It was all melting.
Ellie just nods.
Malcolm's okay for now. I gave him a shot of morphine.
They'll all be fine. Who better to get the children through Jurassic Park than a dinosaur expert?
Ellie nods, another pause. Hammond breaks it again.
You know, the first attraction I ever built when I came down from Scotland was a flea circus, Petticoat Lane. Really quite wonderful. We had a wee trapeze, a roundabout, a merry-go, wow, what do you call it?
Carousel.
A carousel. And the seesaw, they all moved, motorized, of course, but people could swear they could see the fleas. Oh, I see the fleas, Mummy, can't you see the fleas? Clown fleas and high-wire fleas, fleas on parade.
Ellie just looks at him, not sure what his state is. He goes on.
With this place up, I wanted to give them something real. Something that wasn't an illusion, something they could see and touch. A name devoid of merit.
But you can't think through this one. You have to feel it.
You're absolutely right. Yes, you're right. Hiring Nedry was a mistake. That's obvious. We're over-dependent on automation. I can see that now. It's all correctable for the next time around.
John, you're still building into that flea circus, that illusion. And now you're adding on to it by what you're doing here. That's the illusion.
Well, once we have control again,
Control? You never had control. I was overwhelmed by the power of this place. But I made a mistake too. I didn't have enough respect for that power, and now it's out there. You're sitting here trying to pick up the pieces. John, there's nothing worth picking up. The only thing that matters now are the people we love. Alex, Lex, and Tim. John, they're out there where people are dying, you know?
There's a long pause. Hammond avoids her gaze. Ellie reaches out and takes a spoon from one of the buckets of ice cream. She licks it. Finally,
it's good.
He looks up at her and his face is indifferent. The happy irony of what he's about to say finally hits home.
Spared no expense.
Exterior park, dawn. The sun comes up over Jurassic Park. The danger of the night before is overcome by the sheer beauty of the place. It really is like the Serengeti Plain. Over the edge of the great open field, a huge tree marks the border between the open area and the thick of the jungle. Up in the tree, Grant, Tim, and Lex are asleep in the branches of the tree. Both kids are now curled up under Grant's arms. A heavy shadow falls over all three of them, blocking out the sun entirely. Grant awakens, only a little bit asleep, as a brachiosaur's head pushes into the tree branch right beside them. It hesitates there for a second, seemingly startled by them. Grant just watches as it opens its mouth very wide and chomps down on a branch over their heads. The kids awaken with a start. Tim points. Lex opens her mouth to scream, but nothing comes out. Then,
Colby!
It's okay. It's okay. It's a bronchiosaur.
Vegisaurus, Lex, Vegisaurus.
but Lex isn't taking any chances and scrambles back away from its mouth. Tim and Grant come together on the branch, just staring at the dinosaur in wonder as it eats its breakfast. Grant gets another branch. Tim scampers up, trying to get the brachiosaur's attention.
Come here, boy. I mean, girl.
Grant moves forward and tries to feed the brachiosaur. The animal gets the end of the branch and starts a tug-of-war with Grant. Tim tries to help him. They really begin to have a good time. Honk! The brachiosaur makes a loud honking noise, startling Grant and the kids.
Take a bite. Take a bite. I'm not letting go.
It's so strong. Look at its nose. Need help?
Tim reaches out, petting the dinosaur's head while it chews.
That's a girl. Hey, Lex, you can touch it. It's a girl just like you. Come on, it's okay. Lex, come on and touch it. It likes you. It's gotta like you. Come on, Lex. Lex, come over and touch. It's a girl. It has to like you. Lex, why don't you touch it? It has to like you. It's a girl.
Come on, try some. Take a bite.
It's good protein. Come on, Lex. Why don't you touch it? Look at his nose.
This is a 77-ton animal. Come on over, Lex. Just think of it as a big cow. Look at its teeth. Come here. This is a 77-ton animal. They only think of it as a big cow.
Grant maneuvers in closer. He reaches out and grabs hold of the thing's lip with both hands and pulls it down, revealing the jaw work.
I like cows.
Beautiful big animal.
Its nose is running. Looks like it has a cold.
Dinosaur keeps chewing, not objecting to the inspection.
You smell that?
Lex tentatively edges forward in the tree to the inspection.
Come on, girl. Up here.
She barely touches the thing on the tip of its nose, and it sneezes. It's a gas explosion, and Lex falls back, dripping wet from head to toe.
God bless you.
On the ground, Lex, her shirt is soaked and face all wet, walks away from the tree. Tim and Grant follow.
Oh, great. Now she'll never try anything new.
Lex is embarrassed and ticked off.
She'll just sit in a room and never come out and play with a computer.
I'm a hacker.
That's what I said. You're a nerd. They don't call you people hackers anymore. They call you people nerds.
Tim and Lex continue talking, oblivious to Grant, who is stopped by a tree root trunk.
Hey, Lex. Achoo.
What?
Hey, Lex, you forgot to say Gesundheit.
Grant is still crouching on the ground below the tree where they landed, staring at something in the palm of his hand. They both come and look over his shoulder, curious. They stare in amazement at a whole clutch of dinosaur eggs, all hatched, now empty. Grant picks up one of the fragments, a large one, nearly half an egg.
And what this is? It's a dinosaur egg. The dinosaurs are breeding.
But my grandpa said all the dinosaurs were girls.
Amphibian DNA.
What's that?
Well, on the tour, the film said they used frog DNA to fill in the gene sequence gaps. They mutated the dinosaur's genetic code and blended it with that of frogs. Now, some West African frogs have been known to spontaneously change sex from male to female in a single-sex environment. Malcolm was right. Look, life found a way.
Interior control room. The mood in the room is hopeless. Malcolm, his wounds bandaged but in real pain, hangs around with Ellie and Muldoon, hoping for some development while Ray Arnold is still at the computer terminal looking a mess. He doggedly sorts through the computer system's lines of code, one by one by one. They blip by, reflecting in his glasses. He turns up and stares at Hammond with a look of absolute incredulity on his face.
No, that's crazy. You're out of your mind. He's absolutely out of his mind.
Wait a minute. What exactly does this mean?
Hammond turns to her, the twinkle back in his eye.
We're talking, my dear, about a calculated risk, which is the only option left to us. We'll never find a command Nedry used. He's covered his tracks far too well, and I think it's obvious he's not coming back. So shutting down the system...
I'm not going to do it. You're going to have to get somebody else, because I will not.
Shutting down the system is the only way to guarantee wiping out everything he did. If I understand correctly, all the systems will come back to their original startup mode, correct?
Theoretically, yes, but we've never shut down the whole system. It may not come back at all.
So will we get the phones back?
Yeah, again, in theory, but...
What about the Lichtenstein contingency? We could put that into effect.
What's that?
It's absolutely out of the question.
Hammond walks away from the group.
The lysine contingency. It's intended to prevent the spread of the animals in case they ever got off the island, but we could use it now. Dr. Wu inserted a gene that makes a single faulty enzyme in protein metabolism. Animals can't manufacture the amino acid lysine. Unless they're continually supplied with lysine by us, they'll go into a coma and die.
How do we cut off the lysine?
No trick to it, just stop running the program, leaving them unattended.
Malcolm speaks up.
How soon before they become comatose?
It would be totally painless. They just slip into unconsciousness and they die.
How long before they slip into unconsciousness?
About 7 days, more or less.
7 days? 7 days? Oh, great. Clever.
It'll be a first. Man and dinosaur all died together. John's plan.
Hammond finally loses his cool. He bellows, summoning every ounce of authority at his command, and that's quite a bit.
People are dying!
There is a moment in which no one dares to speak. Hammond regains himself.
Will you please shut down the system?
Arnold swallows and gets to his feet.
You asked for it.
He walks slowly across the room to a red metal box on the wall. He takes a key from his belt, unlocks the door, and opens it. There's a row of 4 switches inside. He flips them off one by one, leaving only a single lever left. His hand hovers over it, and he flips the lever.
You got it.
Every monitor, every terminal, every fluorescent light shuts out, plunging them into near darkness. They just sit in eerie stillness for a moment.
How long will this take?
About 30 seconds.
They wait in tense silence. Hammond adjusts the wilting silk handkerchief in his breast pocket. He notices Malcolm staring at him, his eyes full of disapproval.
I think perhaps I'll just sit down. Don't suppose you think all that much of me now, do you?
All right, John. You're okay. Just you don't have intelligence. You have think intelligence. You can think narrowly and call it being focused. You don't see the consequences. You're very good at solving problems and getting answers, but you just don't know the right questions.
Ian?
Malcolm looks at her.
Yes?
Shut up.
Yes? It's not a criticism, by the way.
Finally, Arnold turns back to the box. He flips the row of safety switches back again, then hesitates by the main switch.
Hold on to your butts.
He throws it and nothing happens. There's a very long pause.
Not working.
Listen, which of you knows how to handle a gun?
Arnold, who can't quite understand this, races over to the main monitor.
It's okay, it's okay. Look, see that? Look.
They stare at the monitor, which glows with a faint amber light, the only mechanical thing in the room that's on. The left-hand corner of the screen displays 2 words, system ready. Arnold looks at them, his face triumphant.
It's on. It worked.
That'll teach you to trust Grandpa.
Wait a minute. What do you mean worked? Everything's still off.
The shutdown must have tripped the circuit breakers. All we have to do is turn them back on, reboot a few systems in here, the phones, security doors, half a dozen others, but it worked. System's ready.
Where are the breakers?
Out in the maintenance shed, other side of the compound. I'll go out there. 3 minutes and I can have the power back on in the entire park.
Just to be safe, I'd like to have everybody in the emergency bunker until Mr. Arnold returns and the whole system is back on its feet again.
Cut to exterior compound. Muldoon and Ellie carry a jerry-rigged stretcher with Malcolm on it down a narrow path into the compound. Hammond is with them. Cut to exterior park grounds. Grant, Tim, and Lex walk through the park grounds, heading across a relatively open area. Grant consults the map. You're muted.
You're muted.
Mama, I'm so tired. Are we there yet?
Visitor center should be just about a mile beyond that rise. If we keep...
The animal cry they heard earlier is closer now, louder, and repeated by many more animals. Grant looks
What is that? Can you tell me what they are?
Gallimimus.
He turns around to face the direction the sound is coming from. He squints. The animal cry are much louder now, accompanied by a low rumble.
Here. They're flocking this way.
Grant takes a few steps forward. As he watches, he can make out shapes in the distance. Dinosaurs, dozens of them. All at once, he figures it out.
Stampede!
And that's exactly what it is, a stampede of at least 40 dinosaurs, Gallimimus by name. Lex is ready to get out of there, but Grant and Tim hesitate, staring. The dinosaurs kick up a flock of birds, which startles them, and they call change direction at once, the same way.
Look at the wheeling. The uniform direction change. Like a flock of birds evading a predator.
Sure enough, they hear a roar, a familiar roar of T-Rex.
Oh, shit.
Grant and the kids whirl at the sound, but can't place it as it seems to come from all around them. They look back towards the stampede. The herd spontaneously changes direction again, and now they're headed straight at them. The three of them take off across the meadow toward the relative cover of the jungle. It's a real fortress, but the herd is far faster, and Grant knows they're not going to make it. They jump over a huge root network, and there's space under it to hide, and Grant stops the kids, shoves them underneath, and follows them. They cover their heads up as the herds thunder over the roots. Chunks of everything fly everywhere as the herd plows overhead, their clawed feet striking the roots dangerously close to Grant and the kids. Finally, they pass. Grant peers up over the top root. He looks forward at the trees, which the herd is now running alongside. A roar comes from somewhere within the trees. Grant scans the trees, looking for any sign of the T-Rex, and it bursts out. Ahead of the herd, cutting them off, throwing them into disarray, scattering them everywhere. They all stare as the Rex kicks into overdrive, runs down the Gallimimus, and sinks its teeth into its neck. T-Rex makes it a kill in the cloud of dust and debris. Tim and Grant half rise to their feet, staring in wonder.
I want to go. Now.
But Grant and Tim are transfixed, watching the T-Rex.
Watch how it eats.
Please.
That you'll never look at birds the same way again.
Tim nods in fascination. The T-Rex pauses in the middle of its meal and roars.
Let's go.
Okay, keep low. Follow me.
She turns and takes off, running as fast as she can across the open plain. Tim and Grant tear themselves away and follow her.
Look at all its blood.
Cut to interior bunker. Ellie paces impatiently. She comes down the stairs.
Something's happened. Something went wrong.
Muldoon paces too. Hammond and Malcolm are also crammed in the underground bunker. Malcolm lays on a table while Hammond tries to tend to his wounds. Hammond speaks, still feeling the obligation of the host.
It's just a delay, that's all this is. All major theme parks had delays. When they opened Disneyland in 1956, nothing worked. Nothing.
John,
but if the Pirates of the Caribbean breaks down, the pirates don't eat the tourist.
Another pause, more pacing.
I can't wait anymore. Something went wrong. I'm going to go get the power back on.
You can't just stroll down the road, you know?
Well, Bob, let's not be too hasty. He's only been gone...
Muldoon walks over to a steel cabinet. Ellie joins him.
I'm going with you. Oh, sorry.
I'm going with you.
Okay.
Muldoon clangs open a steel cabinet, revealing an impressive array of weaponry inside. He removes a shotgun and what looks like a small rocket launcher. He shoves a shell into the barrel of the rocket launcher, which accepts it with a faint electronic sizzle. Hammond searches out the set of blueprints, sets them out of the file cabinet, and spreads them on top of Malcolm's, almost crushing his leg.
Sorry?
Ellie and Muldoon join Hammond.
This isn't like switching on the kitchen light, but I think I can follow this and talk you through it.
Hammond signals with a look.
Right.
Ellie gets a couple of walkie-talkies from the shelf and shoves them in her belt.
Okay.
You know, I really should be the one to go.
Why?
Well, because you're a, and I'm a...
Look.
Come on, let's go.
We'll discuss sexism and survival situations when I get back. You just take me through this step by step. I'm on channel 2.
Cut to exterior jungles. Grant, Tim, and Lex scramble through the jungle completely out of breath, exhausted. They arrive at the base of the big electrical fence that surrounds the main compound. Grant looks up at the fence. It must be over 20 feet high.
Bit of a climb. You guys think you can make it?
Nope.
Way too high.
Grant grabs a stick and climbs up on the ledge. He looks at the warning light on the fence. It's out. He pokes the wire with a stick. No sparks fly.
Well. Well, I guess that means the power's off.
Still not trusting the fence, he taps it with his foot. He moves in slowly and lays both hands on the cable and closes his fingers around it. Grant's body shakes. He screams. Kids scream. He stops and turns around slowly, smiles wickedly.
It's not funny.
That was great.
Far in the distance, the T-Rex roars. Without a second's delay, both kids leap to their feet. Cut 2, exterior bunker. Ellie and Muldoon step out of the bunker. The main compound feels different now. It belongs more to the jungle than to civilization. Muldoon has the big gun in his hands.
Okay, I'm on channel 2.
Stick to my heels.
They start down the path, moving quickly. Exterior path. Muldoon and Ellie emerge from one path and come into a slightly more open area. The huge raptor pen stands silently, surrounded and penetrated by a jungle. The abandoned goon looming over it like a haunted house. Muldoon slows down, Ellie right next to him. They notice a hole in the fence that surrounds the raptor pen. The metal is twisted as if gnawed. The hole in the is large enough for the animal to slip through.
Oh my god. Oh god.
They shutdown must have turned all the fences. God damn it, even Nerdy knew better than to mess with that raptor fence.
He squats near the hole, looking at the ground. He sees 3 sets of footprints. He follows them with his eyes. They head off in different directions, but all in the jungle foliage on either side of them.
Come on this way.
I can see the shed from here. We can make it if we run.
Muldoon walks slowly as if he heard something.
No. We can't.
Why not?
Because we're being hunted. From the bushes straight ahead.
Ellie turns very slowly to face the bushes. At first, she doesn't see anything, but then there's something very faint, like a shifting of the light, and a shadow seems to move in the bush, rustling the leaves.
It's all right.
Like hell it is.
Muldoon raises his weapon slowly to his shoulder.
Run toward the shed. I've got her.
Ellie backs up, down the path slowly. Muldoon follows behind her, keeping his gun trained in the bushes. The shadow in the bushes moves too, at an even pace with them.
Go, now!
Ellie, startled, turns and falls over a log. She quickly stands and starts to run towards the shed. Muldoon walks slowly into the bushes. On the path, Ellie runs as fast as she possibly can. A real broken field sprint, hopping over branches, flying across the open area at top speed. Over a log, splash, she hits a water puddle. She comes to another log obstacle. She grabs a tree and swings over it. She nears the maintenance shed and doesn't look back. She reaches the door, blasts through it, and slams behind her. Cut 2, exterior jungle. A hand comes to the foreground and takes a firm grip on one of the tight fence cables. Another hand follows it, then a third. Grant, Tim, and Lex climb over the fence, pulling themselves up by the tension wires, crawling right past a danger sign that tells them this fence ought to be electrified. Interior bunker. Malcolm and Hammond hover over a complex diagram of the maintenance shed that's spread out in front of them. Hammond clutches the radio in his hand, almost praying into it. Finally, it crackles.
I'm in. Mr. Arnold? Mr. Arnold?
Interior maintenance shed. Ellie is in the doorway of the maintenance shed, breathing hard from fear, listening to Hammond's voice on the radio.
Great, good. Okay, ahead of you should be a metal stairway. Go down it.
Ellie does, heading into the room, shining the flashlight ahead of her. There's a maze of pipes, ducts, and electrical work on both sides of her. Interior shed, she walks straight ahead from the bottom of the metal stairs.
After about 20 or 30 feet, you'll come to T-junction. Take a left.
John, just have her follow the main cable.
I understand how to read a schematic.
Ellie keeps walking, nervous as hell. She looks around, awfully dark down here.
Going down the stairs. Okay. Damn it. Dead end.
Wait a minute. There's sort of right back there somewhere.
Ellie, look above you. There should be a large bundle of cable and pipes all leading the same direction. Follow that.
Ellie looks up, finds the bunch of cables, and follows it into the main corridor.
Piping. Okay. Following the piping. It goes back up the stairs and across the stairs. Following the stairs.
Look for a metal grate and follow that to its longest direction.
Mr. Arnold? He's not answering me. Okay, I'm on the grating.
Right, good. Keep going. The cable will terminate in a big gray box.
Okay, I'm following the tubing. I'm going down a passageway. How long does this stuff go for? Could you guys talk a little bit to me?
Walking fast, Ellie follows the tubing to the end of the corridor where she sees just a box.
Okay, I see the gray box.
Ellie goes through the mesh gate and walks towards the box.
It says high voltage.
She pushes the door open even further, revealing a vast array of breakers and switches inside.
Now, Ellie, you can't just throw the main switch by hand. You have to pump up the primer handle to give you a charge. It's large, flat, and gray.
I see it.
Exterior jungle. Grant and the kids swing over the top of the fence and start their climb down. Interior shed. Ellie pumps the gray handle, which is sluggish. Above it, a small white indicator chings over the discharge to charge. Ellie slams the gray lever back into position.
Okay, charged.
Right, good. Now, under the words contact position, there's a round green button that says push to close. Push it.
Ellie does. The contact position light chings over the closed and lights start to go on all over the panel.
Did I do it? Is the power back on?
Exterior jungle. Grant and Lex continue to climb down the fence. Tim is having difficulty. Just as he's about to take another step, he loses his footing and almost falls, but regains control and hangs on. Interior shed. Ellie watches the column of the 12 white indicator lights flash on the control panel. They're clearly labeled, each one for a different area of the park.
Now, Ellie, the red buttons turn on individual park systems. Switch them on.
As Ellie punches the buttons, they light up, and our eyes go near the end of the row. It's marked perimeter fence. Interior jungle. Grant lets go, dropping the last few feet to the ground. Lex does the same. A warning light begins to flash, coming back to life. Grant's eyes go wide. He looks up at Tim, who's still far up, near the top, in fact. He has to come to a complete stop. Interior shed. Ellie keeps pushing the buttons. He's getting closer to the button for the fence. Exterior jungle. Tim, terrified, has frozen where he is.
Tim, you have to let go.
Shed. Day. Ellie's still punching the buttons, now only half a dozen away for the one from the fence. Now 5, now 3. Exterior jungle. Grant and Lex are both screaming at Tim.
Come on, Tim, move down. Damn it.
Timmy, the power's coming on. Down, quick.
Can't. I'm scared.
Tim, you're going to have to let go. I'm going to count to 3.
Jump, Timmy. It's too late.
I'm afraid I'm going to fall.
Go, 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 go. Jump.
You're crazy. I'm not going to jump.
Tim, you're going to have to let go of the fence. Tim, get down right now. Get off the fence. Now.
Do as he says. The power's coming back. Timmy.
Timmy, let go. You're going to have to let go. Count to 3. I'll catch you.
Timmy, do what he says. Timmy, do as Dr. Grant says. Quick.
Are you crazy? What if you miss? I hate it up here.
Tim, I'm right here. Easy catch. Easy catch. Count to 3.
You're going to get electrocuted.
Shut up. You're scaring me. Stop. You're scaring me.
Shh, Tim, I'm right here below you. Easy catch. 1, 2, 3. Count it yourself. 1, 2, 3.
You're going to get electrocuted.
It's an easy catch. Come on, Tim, you got to let go. I'm going to do all the counting, okay? Forget it. I'm coming up there, Tim. I'm coming to get you. Lex, I've got to go get him.
Interior maintenance shed. Ellie finally pushes the button for the fences. It stops flashing and lights up a brilliant white. Cut to exterior jungle. The fence hums as it awakens. Grant and Lex are screaming at Tim.
Okay. I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3.
With a low, loud, frightening buzz, the fence comes alive. Pow! Tim is cut off mid-sentence and literally thrown from the fence. He slams into Grant. They fall to the ground. Lex runs over to them.
Oh my God. Tim, you okay? You okay?
Grant notices a larger problem.
I'm breathing. Tim!
Interior maintenance shed. Ellie watches as the banks of fluorescent lights in the maintenance shed come on one by one. The lights are going on in rows, coming closer and closer to her. Finally, her row comes on. She follows the light and sees a raptor right there. Behind the control panel, it slashes, taking a lunge sweep at Ellie, but gets stuck, its feet and legs tangled in the maze of pipes on the floor. This is our first good look at one of these things, and if it weren't so terrifying, we could admit that it truly is a thing of beauty. It's the biggest of the raptors, intensely muscled, coordinated as hell, and smoothly designed predator. Ellie shouts and falls back into the pipes on the other side of the aisle. The raptor untangles itself from the pipes and gives chase, just as Ellie slams the mesh door closed. The raptor bangs against the mesh door. Ellie falls to the ground. She holds on by knocking the door shut as the raptor continues to push himself through the door. Ellie is able to get the door closed. She stands, but then falls back onto one of the walls. A dead arm falls onto her shoulder. Ray Arnold is there, or what's left of him, stuck in the tangle of pipes. Ellie moves away and his arm falls to the ground. She doesn't realize that she's moved right back near the mesh wall, and the raptor comes at her again. Ellie takes off running as fast as she can, back the way she came. She drags the flashlight with her, running over the dead arm and Arnold's legs. She continues to run, her headset dangling, the flashlight dragging behind her on its cord. She reaches the stairs and hits them hard, flying up them. The raptor must be right behind her. She can hear the clicking and clanging as it scrambles up the stairs, but she doesn't look back. She reaches the top, throws open the door, hurls herself outside. Exterior shed. She slams the door behind her just as the raptor's head snarls at her from the top of the stairs. She runs out the fence and collapses. Exterior jungle. Tim is still unmoving. Grant is performing CPR, alternatively compressing Timmy's chest 15 times, quickly and breathing into his mouth twice. Lex is freaking out. 15 compressions, 2 deep breaths.
Come on, Tim.
15 compressions, 2 deep breaths.
Timmy!
15 compressions. Tim gasps and comes to.
Good boy, Tim. Good boy.
Sorry. 3.
Cut to exterior jungle. Muldoon creeps slowly through the jungle foliage, tracking his prey. He ducks and walks through a hollow log underneath the fallen tree, following the rustling sound up ahead of him. He can see just a trace of the raptor's gray flesh as it moves behind the bushes up ahead, staying camouflaged enough to deny him a decent shot. Thinking he's got a moment, Muldoon extends the back of the handle of the gun, clicks into place. He prepares to take aim. A snake slithers across a tree branch, past what looks like the large iris of a flower. The flower blinks. It's the eye of the raptor. Muldoon sees it. He raises his gun. Instead of running away again, the raptor rises slowly out of the brush, fully revealing itself to Muldoon, hissing at him. The corner of Muldoon's mouth twitch into a smile. He draws a bead on the animal. His finger tenses on the trigger. Suddenly, his smile vanishes. Both eyes pop open, and a terrible thought sweeps across his face. His eyes flip to the side.
Ever girl.
Which is where the attack comes from. With a roar, another raptor comes flashing out of nowhere and pounces on him. The gun wildly, the raptor's claw slashes through Muldoon's midsection. Muldoon screams and falls back, the raptor locked on top of him, all tooth and claw all of a sudden. As the second raptor makes the kill, the first raptor strides slowly forward and watches approvingly. It throws its head back and snarls. Interior Visitor Center. Grant, Tim, and Lex come into the deserted visitor center. A large sign that says, "When dinosaurs ruled the earth," droops overhead. Grant now carries Tim, who is weakened but conscious.
Hello?
Nobody answers. Interior restaurant. Grant, Tim, and Lex come into the restaurant. Grant carefully sets Tim in a chair at one of the tables. Lex across from him.
I'm going to go to find the others and get you to a doctor. We look after Tim, Lex?
Yeah.
Grant nods. He looks at Tim for a second.
Your hair's all standing up.
He gently rearranges Tim's hair, which is wild, all over his head. Tim looks up at him weakly and manages a smile. Grant smiles back.
Big Tim. The human piece of toast.
Tim laughs. Grant pauses for a second as if debating something.
Be back soon, guys. I promise.
He leaves. As he goes across the lobby of the visitor center and outside, they can see his silhouette moving through the translucent mural that depicts dinosaurs in various natural settings. It's quiet for a second as Lex and Tim just look at each other. Tim goes across the room to an all-you-can-eat table on the other side and quickly piles on some food on a tray. He quickly brings it back to the table. Lex digs in, munching on veggies, grabbing food with 2 hands. Tim enjoys his food too. Lex comes up with a spoonful of lime jello from a plastic dinosaur egg cup, but her hand freezes halfway to her mouth. Tim looks up and sees the expression on her face. She's staring over his shoulder, eyes wide, the jello quivering in her shaking hands.
What?
Tim turns around. Behind him, one of the silhouettes on the mural is a raptor in a hunting pose. While they stare, the silhouette of a real raptor moves out from behind it and creeps forward. In the lobby of the visitor center. Interior kitchen. Lex pulls the shiny metal door shut as quickly as she can. It latches with a distinctive click, but there's no lock. She runs to a panel of light switches and kills them all, plunging the room into semi-darkness. She helps Tim down the aisle and they hide at the end behind a counter, breathing hard. A raptor's head pops into view, visible through the round window in the middle of the restaurant door. It just looks for a moment, its breath steaming up the window. Through the window, as steam evaporates, the raptor can see a part of Tim that is not entirely hidden by the counter. In the kitchen, Tim and Lex remain frozen in fear as the raptor first sniffs at the bottom of the door, then thumps its head against it. But the door doesn't budge. Cut to exterior compound. Grant walks quickly down the narrow path towards Hammond's compound, eyes darting from side to side, not exactly sure where he's going. From far off, he hears someone shouting to him. He turns, he sees Ellie standing outside the bunker. She's waving to him, shouting something too faint for him to hear. He furrows his brow and walks towards the door. She shouts louder. He walks faster. He's closer now, and he can finally make out what she's shouting.
Run!
Grant takes off running toward her, not even looking back. He races up, and she runs into his arms.
Where are the kids?
Interior bunker. John Hammond stands between Grant and Ellie in the bunker, watching as Grant racks the bolts on a 10-gauge shotgun.
Just the two raptors, right? You're sure the third one's contained?
Yeah, unless they learn how to open doors.
Cut to interior kitchen. Outside the door, the raptor stares down at the door handle, cocking its head curiously. It snarls and bumps the door handle with its head, but that doesn't do anything. It reaches out toward the handle with a clawed hand. In the kitchen, Tim and Lex stare in shock as the door handle starts to turn. The door opens. First, the raptor stands in the doorway, draws itself to its full height, and looks around. Now, a second raptor joins it in the doorway. They move into the room, brushing against each other. The first raptor snaps as the second, as if to say, keep your distance. Now the raptors split, taking two different aisles. Tim and Lex crawl away, Tim awfully weak now, down a third aisle, around the other side of the counter from the raptors, moving in the opposite direction. As Tim and Lex pass the raptors, one of the raptors' tails smack into some pots and pans, knocking them off the counter. They fall on the kids, who manage to keep quiet. The kids keep moving as one of the raptors dips down, looking through an open cabinet to inspect the racket. Tim and Lex reach the end of the aisle and round a corner, but Timmy's falling behind now, and he accidentally brushes against some hanging kitchen utensils. Both raptors turn. One jumps into the counter, knocking more kitchen stuff on the floor. A ladle clatters onto the to a stop, and the strange metallic sounds confuse the raptors for a moment. But then they move in Tim's direction, sniffing, heading right for him. The raptor is on the floor, just about to turn the corner where Tim sits, exposed and exhausted. But both the raptors suddenly stop, hearing a clicking sound from the other end of the aisle. It's Lex, tapping a spoon on the floor to distract them. The raptor on the countertop jumps down and starts cautiously towards Lex's noise, leaving Tim. Lex sees a steel cabinet behind her, its sliding door slid up and open. She crawls inside silently. Tim sees the raptors make the turn towards Lex, smashing more stuff around with their tails. He turns and sees the walk-in freezer in the far wall with a pin locking handle. As Lex tries to pull the overhead door to the cabinet shut, one of the raptors rounds the corner and sees her reflection in a shiny cabinet front. Lex tries frantically to lower the cabinet door, but it's stuck. Tim takes a few deep breaths, summons what little strength he has left, and makes a break for the walk-in freezer. He's limping, dragging himself, really moving like a wounded prey now, and the other raptor spots him. Both raptors go into a pre-attack crouch as they pounce, one towards each of the kids. Lex tugs on the cover to the avail. Tim's raptors charge after him, just open floor space between them. And Lex's raptor thuds into a surface bearing her reflection. It chased the wrong image. It sags onto the floor, semi-conscious. At the other end of the aisle, the real Lex screams as the other raptor bears down on Tim. Tim reaches the freezer, rips the door open, and falls inside. The floor is cold and slick, and his feet go right out from under him. He sprawls across the floor, rolls out of the way, and the raptor slips and falls into the freezer too, right past him. Tim drags himself to his feet and out of the freezer. The raptor makes one last lunge, right on Tim's heels, its mouth wide open, but Lex slams the door shut just as Tim is clear. The raptor's head is caught for a second, but it snarls, retreats, and Lex gets the door shut all the way. The raptor roars and screams inside. Lex jams the pin through the handle, locking it in. Now the other raptor staggers to its feet. Groggy, it smashes into stuff all over the kitchen. Lex throws her arms around Tim again for support, and they take off. Interior restaurant. Tim and Lex hurry across as they stare back over their shoulders. They crash into Grant and Ellie.
It's in there.
Control room.
Interior second floor corridor. Grant, Ellie, and the kids race down the second floor corridor towards the control room. Grant helping Tim. Interior control room. The door to the control room smacks open. Grant, Ellie, and the kids burst in. Ellie heads straight for Nedry's computer terminal. Grant moves Tim to the side and races back to the door to lock it.
You can call for help?
We've got to reboot the system first.
She sits at the computer and studies the screen. It's flashing to her, dominated by a maze-like grid. She studies it, confused.
Oh no, the door locks. Ellie, boot up the door locks. Boot up the door locks.
How? Something hits the door hard from the outside. The kids scream. Grant hurls his back against it. Grant loses his gun. He struggles. The raptor scratches his head.
Alan!
And Ellie leaps out of her chair and races over to the door to help him. A raptor snarls and snaps, ramming itself against the door, trying to force its way into the control room. It's all Ellie and Grant can do to hold the door against the onslaught, but it bucks against them viciously.
Ellie, get back and boot up the door locks.
You can't hold it by yourself.
Well, Ellie, get the gun.
I can't get it unless I move.
Over at the computer, Lex slides quickly into the command chair at Nedry's terminal. She stares at the screen for a moment.
This is a Unix system. I know this. It's for files, for the whole park. It's like a phone book. It tells you everything.
And then her fingers start to fly over the keyboard. Tim watches, amazed, as the computer starts to respond to her commands.
I've got to find the right file. No, this isn't right. This might be right. No, it isn't.
Come on, Lex. Come on, Lex. Go, Lexi.
Reaching another menu, Lex spots a box on the screen that reads Door Integrity. She reaches out and touches it. The screen blips.
There it is. I got it. This is it. I did it. Yes. Yes.
And the door latch panel buzzes. Grant and Ellie put everything they have into it, and finally the door sticks shut, locking the raptor outside.
What works?
Phones, security systems, everything works. You ask for it, we got it.
Cut to interior bunker. A phone rings. Hammond and Malcolm look at each other wide-eyed. Hammond lunges for it.
Grant, are the children all right?
Interior control room. All the screens in the control room have come alive now, and data is scrolling by at an incredible speed as every remaining system as the park comes back online. Ellie is the keyboard with Lex now, figuring things out, and Grant is on the phone.
Children are fine.
Interior control room. Hammond is on the phone, Malcolm trying to listen.
Thank God.
Listen, the phones are back up. Call the main line. Tell them to send the damn helicopters.
Suddenly, Grant stops in the middle of his sentence. A scream cuts in, and 3 gunshots. Fast and a horrible clunking as the phone is dropped.
Grant? Grant!
But there's no answer. Interior control room. Grant's rifle lies on the floor, smoking, several spent shells alongside it. The front window of the control room has 3 huge impact shatter patterns in the glass where the gunshots hit. Tim goes to an open panel through the ceiling and into the crawl space. Lex climbs the ladder, followed by Ellie and Grant. Grant looks over to the front window, scared as hell, just as it shatters and a shower of glass in the raptor explodes into the control room. It lands on its feet on a workstation console, images from wall projectors falling across its head. Grant vaults himself up into the ceiling and knocks the ladder away with his feet. The raptor tilts its head curiously, looking into the swaying ceiling. In the crawl space, Grant and Ellie and the kids dash across the ceiling panels, moving fast but carefully so as not to break through. Smash! The raptor's head bursts through a panel behind them, leaping up at them, snarling and snapping. It drops down again and they keep moving forward, but now it erupts through a panel right in front of them. They scream. Its teeth click just inches in front of Ellie. But the raptor can't hold itself up there, and it falls back to the floor of the control room. Grant looks around frantically and spots an air duct a few yards away.
Follow me.
Then they move for it, but the raptor's head crashes through the ceiling again, this time right underneath Lex. She screams and is lifted up on top of its head, pinned to the ceiling above. Grant smashes his boot into the side of the raptor's head. The raptor slams at him, latching onto his boot for a second before the raptor's own weight pulls it back down. Lex goes down with the raptor, spinning into the hole of the ceiling, tumbling down. Grant grabs her by the collar at the last second, but Lex dangles there above the raptor. The animal flips over onto its feet and crouches to pounce just as Grant summons his strength and jerks Lex back to the ceiling. The raptor springs, but too late. Grant and Lex scramble over to the air duct and join Ellie and Tim inside. In the air duct, Grant, Ellie, and the kids crawl through the air duct as fast as they can, the thin metal booming and creasing around them as they reach a metal gate that shows daylight beneath. Grant reaches out and pulls it up. Through the gate, they can see the lobby of the visitor center below. They're directly above the skeletons of the dinosaurs, the T-Rex and the sauropod it's attacking. The unfinished skeletons are surrounded by scaffolding. Interior Rotunda Day. Grant and the others climb down out of the air duct onto the platform of the scaffolding that stands alongside the skeletons. They continue down the second platform, then the third. They suddenly see a raptor standing on the side by the second floor railing. It's much too far to jump to the lobby floor, so Grant climbs gingerly onto the nearest skeleton, the towering brachiosaur. They climb down as fast as they can. Grant helps Tim down. Lex and Ellie follow. Ellie goes onto the tail. Lex moves to the front. Grant lands on the main body in the middle with Tim, and the raptor watches them. Up in the ceiling, the skeleton's anchor bolts a groan in the plaster, starting to pull free, but for now, they hold. The raptor flies out and lands on the back of the middle section of the skeleton. Snap! It cracks apart with the weight, sending the section spinning on all different directions. Grant and Tim twirl in the middle section. Tim begins to slide down. Grant tries to hold on to him, but Tim loses his grip and falls to the ground right underneath the swinging, large middle section of the dinosaur skeleton. Meanwhile, Lex spins on the front section. She slips and tries to keep from falling as she hangs by her legs. The anchor bolts in the ceiling, rip free, zinging past them like bullets. The entire brachiosaur skeleton collapses like a house of cards, sending Ellie to the ground. She covers herself with arms, trying to protect her from the shower of falling bones. Lex falls, landing on the ground with bones falling on top of her. She screams. Grant, alone in the middle section, looks up and sees the cable about to snap. He falls. The large section of the skeleton comes careening down, heading straight for Tim, who lays where he fell on the ground. It comes smashing down with just enough space for him to be safe. The raptor tumbles to the floor in a cascade of splintering bone. It lands on its back a few yards away and staggers for a moment, the wind knocked out of it. Grant lands up in front of Tim. He stands and goes to Tim. Lex sits up and sees the raptor regain its feet. She screams. Ellie stands. She notices the shadow of the second raptor standing behind the bisqueen. She stops dead in her tracks. She backs up toward Grant and Tim. The raptor comes out from under the plastic and looks around. Grant gets Tim out from under the skeleton. Lex joins them. They back away from the raptor, approaching from the left side. They back up towards the large rock in the middle of the room, hanging up, holding the other skeleton. The raptor crouch in their pre-attack stance. The group is caught in the middle of two approaching raptors. Lex looks back and screams. Grant and the others continue to back up. They look up and see Tyrannosaurus Rex. Its massive head descends down from above. A set of 6-foot jaws clamp down on the raptor. 18-inch teeth sink into its side, and the helpless animal howls in agony as it's lifted up off the floor into the lobby. Grant and the others look up in stunned amazement. They step back behind the rock for safety and look to the right. They see another raptor approaching. The other raptor goes up in the air, now 20 feet off the lobby floor, held fast to the mouth of the T-Rex. It stands in the entrance of the lobby in front of the massive hole and ripped through the visqueen wall. It shakes its enormous head once, breaking the neck of the velociraptor, then drops it, dead, on the floor at its feet. Grant, Ellie, and the kids skirt the battle royale on the lobby floor and dash out of the door of the visitor center. The second raptor turns from the humans and lunges at the Rex's side, leaping 12 feet into the air and rending the Rex's flesh as it comes down, slashing it open with its 6-inch claw. The Rex bellows in pain and turns on the raptor, eyes raging, and strikes just once, quickly, as fast as the head of a serpent. It catches the raptor by thick back end, butts one of its enormous feet down on it, and tears. It rips the last velociraptor in half. The Rex whirls around as it turns. Its heavy tail counterbalances, snapping the other way, sweeping across the lobby and smashing right through the T-Rex skeleton. The skeleton collapses in an explosion of bones falling to pieces around the living Rex. The Rex stands majestically in the middle of the lobby, both skeletons swept away, snapping like matchsticks as they settle around the animal. The Rex draws itself to its full height and roars. The sound is deafening, and the vibrations rattle the entire visitor center. The sign which dangled over the lobby by its one remaining wire finally falls, clattering to the floor at the Rex's feet, face up. When dinosaurs ruled the earth, it says. Outside the visitor center, Hammond squeals the Jeep to a halt in front of the steps. Malcolm is laying in the back. Grant and the others practically fall into the Jeep.
Mr. Hammond, after very careful consideration, I have decided not to endorse your park.
After careful consideration, Dr. Grant, so have I.
Hammond hits the gas and the Jeep takes off. Exterior helicopter landing pad. The helicopter rotors whirl to life as the chopper waits on the landing cross. 2 Jeeps roar up next to it, one driven by Grant, the other by Hammond. One by one, they climb aboard, their faces white from their ordeal. Ellie comes on first, holding Lex, then Hammond carrying Tim, and Grant helping Malcolm. No one speaks. Hammond takes another look at his dream. Grant comes over and takes him back to the helicopter. The helicopter takes off immediately as they rise into the air. They stare out the windows, looking down at the park as it spreads out below. Down in the park, the helicopter soars over a vast plain. The tyrannosaur, which is still feeding on the remains of the dinosaurs it ran down and killed, looks up. It throws its head back and roars, waving its little forelimbs at the strange thing in frustration. As the helicopter moves off, the T-Rex just stares silently with huge, yellowing eyes. It's a moment of utter bewilderment for the Rex, and we almost feel sad for her. Back in the helicopter, Hammond looks down at the park, his eyes full. He looks over at the kids. They're in the back of the helicopter with Grant as they look out the window. Grant almost absently has his arms around both kids. Now Ellie looks at him. Both he and the kids seem so natural, so obviously comfortable and trusting with each other. She smiles. The 4 of them sit that way in the back of the helicopter, huddled together. Survivors. Grant looks out the window. The helicopter sweeps low over the huge flock of seabirds that's feeding on a school of fish. As the chopper roars near, it kicks up the flock. Hundreds of birds sail off in all directions, powerful and graceful. Grant looks up at the birds and breaks into a wide grin. The birds reform as flock again and fly straight into the sun. Fade out.
Good job, Cass. That was a lot of action.
If you had split that in 2, Curtis, Taylor would hate me right now. The whole second half of that is basically
version 1 or version 2.
Oh my gosh, it's like
version 3.
All right, so if you're all watching this table reading, thanks for joining us. This was a lot of fun. So catch you next time at the next table reading.